Hey everyone, it's Scott Hansen from NFL Red Zone reminding you to watch Sports Ballers, the podcast that gets you caught up on everything Washington sports and beyond.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Sports Ballers podcast. We are back. We haven't done this in 4 weeks on account of people getting married and having root canals and other issues. And seemingly we were surprised we were even going to be able to do this week's episode, but here we are. Obviously nobody's watching live, but this is 9:30 at night start time for us. So it's a little late, but we're going to get this out here and get you guys updated with the latest sports stuff. But how you doing, Corey, Evan?
And it's the first episode of our 5th year of this show.
Yeah.
How about that?
Had some delays in production, but we are finally getting started.
We don't hate each other.
The band hasn't
yet,
broken
so
up.
We're back.
Yes.
Band is still together. Yeah, no,
right.
I'm doing well. Hopefully, Evan's doing well and you're doing well.
I mean, I'm eating McDonald's at 9:30 and talking about sports. What can I like about that? That's like right in my wheelhouse, man. So I guess we'll get started. I'm going to start with football, actually. We usually finish with that, but let's get the show on the road with some my least favorite football news of all time. This has to do with training camp, and it's precisely because of what happened to Tim Patrick, who suffered a torn ACL and is now out for the year. So before the season even starts, his season is over. Frustrating for him, frustrating for everybody involved. But we hope he recovers quickly and has, a full recovery. He's able to get back on the field next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. What was it, 2 years ago that the same thing happened to Cortland Sutton right around this time? Same team, same injury. And it just sucks. I mean, you can't, it takes a year to heal from that, basically. There's no way to come back for the season. And so, I mean, it sucks for him. It sucks for the Broncos too. I mean, you got Russell Wilson. You pay all this. You bring him in to hopefully be your quarterback and be the guy that he used to be in Seattle. And now he's got one less guy to throw to. This is gonna be one of his top 3 receivers. You got Cortland Sutton, you got Jerry Jeudy, and I mean, you also got Noah Fant at tight end. But that's a big loss. Tim Patrick had really kind of emerged as a solid, 2-3 receiver for them. And, he finally gets a quarterback, somebody not named Drew Lock or Marcus Simeon. Is it Marcus Simeon? Whatever his first name was.
Mm-hmm.
No, Trevor Simeon. Marcus Simeon's a baseball player.
I was about to I'm trying to transition between
he had a home run today.
But...
Yeah, I was doing that all weekend because the Orioles were playing, or all week because the Orioles are playing the Rangers, and we'll get to that in a little bit. And I kept getting Trevor Simeon and Marcus Simeon mixed up in my own head. So I got it right today. So I'm here to correct if anybody else is messing it up. Thank you.
In any case, he finally gets a quarterback to throw on the ball, and he's not going to be able to enjoy that this year. So, best wishes to him on his recovery.
Absolutely.
100%. So some Lamar Jackson non-news. No update on his contract. So we'll move on. I think we've talked about that quite a bit, even though it's been basically a full month.
Ad nauseum. Yeah.
Yes. So the Hall of Fame game is tomorrow. Wow, that's crazy.
Yes.
That's kind of
really
snuck
did
up
not
on me.
realize this until yesterday, Tuesday, when I was like, I wonder when the Hall of Fame game is. I looked it up. I'm like, oh, it's in 2 days.
Well, and the thing is, it's not like this is a situation where the game is being played earlier than usual. It gets played now all the time. We just had no idea that it was already August.
Yeah, it just kind of snuck up on us.
It's been a summer.
This is what happens when the Orioles win, right? All my football thinking is delayed. I'm not looking forward to it as much. The countdown is not on yet. So, I was just scrolling through Twitter, as I do. and I saw it was like an ad for the Hall of Fame game, and I'm like, wait, it's this week? Excuse me? So I shared in our group chat, like, the Hall of Fame game is literally tomorrow, and it is. It's crazy.
Well,
So
I think the other thing is, like, I at least am used to a lot of the off-season shenanigans in the NFL being sort of wrapped up as we, so that at this point, the only NFL news really is training camp news. But we have a whole bunch of other drama that is also still unfolding or just being
a
resolved.
whole bunch of
except
foolishness
it's
to
not
get
really
to.
resolved. Like, we still got all this crap that we're dealing with. Oh, and we've been in training camp long enough that the Hall of Fame game is already here.
Yeah, and I'm gonna watch most of it probably.
I'm not gonna watch any of it, but that's
Honestly, I probably won't either this year. It's gonna be a date
I'm
night.
gonna be busy
Orioles
tomorrow.
have an off day tomorrow.
It'll be a date night for Rashawn and me. We will be watching Better Call Saul.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll probably try to watch some more.
Y'all are gonna
Banshee or
miss out
something.
on terrible football then. It's your loss.
Yeah. I skipped the Pro Bowl for the same reason. So.
Well, I mean, if Trevor Lawrence and ETN were actually going to play, maybe I consider tuning in for the first series or two. But they're both out, so what am I watching for?
Yeah, they
I
already
just like football.
I do too. I like good football though.
I mean,
and the Hall of Fame
I'll
game
usually,
is never good football. The Hall of Fame game is usually worse than the Pro Bowl.
See, the issue I have with watching preseason football isn't even so much the fact that it's bad football because you're not getting a whole lot of the starters. It's also the fact that it means absolutely nothing, right? Like, I can tolerate, sometimes exhibition sports if I can actually get something from it based on what's going to happen when the games count. You can't do anything like that with preseason football, so it just kind of goes in the ignore column for me. I watch bad football all the time. I watch college football every Saturday, and that's terrible football compared to the NFL. So,
I'll watch preseason football, but usually like after the first week, because the first week of preseason football, everybody is still in they're just like working out all the rust still. Like it doesn't get shaken out during training camp, and so the first week is usually still really bad. And then, weeks 2 and 3 usually are okay. You get more, not only do you get a little bit more of the starters, but also even the backups are kind of getting into the flow of the game, and they can be fun to watch too.
It's funny because preseason really doesn't have to exist. It exists solely to make money, and it's such a mediocre product. I mean, college football teams go out there and play week 1 after playing no games all the time, and it's fine. So, this is just a way to get people to watch more football, even though it doesn't count. But
to be fair,
and it's working.
When you watch week 1 college football, how many of those games are between ranked opponents? And on the rare occasions where there are like good teams playing against each other and not, Alabama playing against like Citadel, I would argue that it is not as good a football. It's not as good a product as, if those two meet in week 10 of the season or even in week 3 of the season.
Okay, but that also applies to early season football. We always talk about mid-season form anyway. So, I don't think it's overall not necessary. If preseason went away, I don't think we'd be the worse for it. It's just that, people like it. I don't care for it, but people like it. But let's talk about why we're actually talking about the Hall of Fame game, because people are getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. And
the
I
headliners.
think that's more important than, some crappy football game that's not going to matter in 5 months when somebody's holding up the Super Bowl trophy. Or 6 months actually. So the headliners are Cliff Branch, Richard Seymour, and Dick Vermeil. All of those guys are obviously very worthy Hall of Fame inductees. Richard Seymour has been waiting for a little while, but I'm glad to see that he finally got in because he was a beast. Any thoughts about these 3 headliners from either of you?
I'm kind of surprised that Cliff Branch wasn't already in, quite frankly. I mean,
yeah, so was I. I didn't think I thought he was already in.
He was a fantastic wide receiver in his day. He played back in the 70s I think his career ended in the early 80s, but he was a part of all 3 Raiders Super Bowls. Like Super Bowl wins. Like he was a phenomenal player, and the fact that he wasn't already in was kind of shocking to me when they announced him during the NFL honors last
He
winter.
passed away in 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
3 years ago today.
Yeah, it's a little strange. I feel like sometimes those Raiders teams get a little bit overlooked, maybe just because people hated Al Davis and his contemporaries probably didn't have a whole lot of good things to say about him, and that might extend to the players. Like we saw Kenny Stabler had to wait a long time to get in. He got inducted by the Veterans Committee or something like that. I don't know if they do that for football, but it was some other way to get inducted versus the standard process. And it feels like sometimes those teams get slept on. But Cliff Branch at his peak, 3-time All-Pro wide receiver, certainly had, mostly had the volume. I mean, it certainly was playing in the 70s, so it's a little bit different. We're not talking about, the video game numbers that people put up today or have for the last 20 years, but certainly a worthy inductee, and glad to see that he's finally getting his honor, even if it's posthumous.
Yep. And then Dick Vermeil, I mean, what he did in Philadelphia, what he did with the Rams, like
what he did with the Chiefs too, man. Like don't sleep on that that mid 2000s Chiefs run with Trent Green and Tony Gonzalez and Priest Holmes. Those teams were really, really good. They just never got over the hump, but they were competing in one of the toughest AFCs we've had. So there's no shame in not winning the Super Bowl. Those offenses were dominant.
Oh, absolutely, no doubt. No, I mean Dick Vermeil, fantastic coach, fantastic person from everything that I've seen about him. I'm really looking forward to hearing his speech on Saturday.
Oh yeah. Oh, he'll probably start crying because that's what he does. And there's no shade to that. By the way,
I mentioned the names to Rashonda today. She was asking, "Oh, who's getting inducted?" I mentioned him, and the first thing she said is, "Oh, he's the one who cries a lot, right?"
Yes, he is, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I was like, yes, he is the one who is not too tough to, show his emotions.
he's got a little, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with, it's an emotional game. So I'm going to hop to Deebo Samuel's news real quick.
Somebody who actually does have a new contract.
Yeah, Deebo got paid. DK Metcalf also got paid.
Yeah, he did.
But Deebo's the headliner here because he was an All-Pro last year.
And also because last year there was some talk about him requesting a trade. So there wasn't even a guarantee that he had a future in San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm glad he's back there. He feels, I don't know, it's weird. He feels like a 49er to me.
He does to me too, and it is very strange because this is only going on his third or fourth year in the league. Like that doesn't seem like
fourth.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like that's enough time for you to feel like, a particular team. Especially when you have somebody like Tom Brady now playing for the Buccaneers. Like he felt like a Patriot, and he's not anymore. But he does, like Deebo does feel like a 49er, and I think some of it is just because of his use as both a wide receiver and a running back, and the 49ers have become a very running back dominant team over the past half decade.
He feels like a Shanahan player, right? Like he
absolutely.
can do both. He's tough as nails and all those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, he obviously had some trepidations. He's been injured early in his career. He missed a lot of time. I think in 2020, he barely played. He had a big impact as a rookie, but then 2020 he was banged up. Then this year he comes out and he's a wrecking ball all season. And he looked at it and probably said, okay, I'm a wide receiver, but I'm also tasked with playing running back, which means I am administering pain and getting a lot of pain administered to me too. I got to get my money. And looks like he got his money. And, it seems like a lot of people talked about how he didn't want to be a quote unquote wide back. Like he didn't want to do the running between the tackles thing that he did with the 49ers. But it seems like he's pushing back on that notion. And frankly, it doesn't surprise me that he is because that's what makes him great. Like he's a very good wide receiver, but what makes him special is the fact that he can do both things at a very high level.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that, you have to expect that he is going to touch the ball on every single play because he very well might. Whether he's going to, run out of the backfield, whether he's going to carry the ball on a reverse, whether he's going to run a route, like he does all of it at a top-tier level.
And he's the 49ers' best player on offense. Like we saw in the playoffs how the 49ers, when they didn't give the ball to Deebo Samuel, they couldn't do anything on offense. You're going to let Jimmy Garoppolo throw it all over the place. He's going to throw it to his team just as much as the other team. So, gotta know where your bread is buttered, really. So, good for Debo for getting his money, and good for the 49ers to, come to their senses and be like, we kind of need this guy.
Yeah, he is one of the most complete skill players I've ever seen, because, when you think about a guy who runs between the tackles while also being a receiver, you think that's going to be like a big physical possession type of receiver, but he's elusive as hell. Like, he finds little creases to get through. He's got excellent burst. He gets up the field really quickly, and he can still run you over. Like, he's just an incredible football player, and he's perfect for that Shanahan offense. And hopefully Trey Lance will know what he's got and appreciate it and be able to maximize it, because he's going to need to if they want to continue to stay a Super Bowl contender.
I've still got my own concerns about Trey Lance. And
fair enough. Yeah.
Honestly, Debo's comments about how things are going with Trey Lance didn't settle that feeling at all for me. He was very kind, but it was an answer that you can clearly tell, yeah, it's not going so great yet, is it?
Well, Trey Lance has played 3 or 2 football games in the last 3 years because of the pandemic, and then because he wasn't starting last year.
Yeah,
so
if you remember what I talked about going into last year's draft when he got picked, was I wasn't wowed by his college tape. So
there wasn't much of it.
There wasn't much of it, but the college tape that there was did not impress me. Certainly not enough for him to be, drafted where he was, and for him to be about to be a starter in just his second year in the NFL. I think there's going to be some significant growing pains. I don't know if he's ever going to find a foothold in the NFL, but I'm not going to just close the curtain on him because I haven't seen him play in the NFL, but I have some serious concerns. So the fact that Debo is okay with being a wide back is good, because they might need to use him as the back part of that a little bit more this year.
Like the quarterback, maybe. Can he throw it?
Probably can. I mean, let's face it, though. Even if Trey Lance doesn't have a great first season as a starter, there's not a very big bar to clear, because his predecessor was Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not like he's replacing Joe Montana here. So, the shoes are not that big.
No.
So if he can be competent, the team will still be good. So let's talk a little nonsense.
Right.
A lot of nonsense, I should say.
The stuff that made me forget that we were already in spring training.
Yes. Let's see. We'll start with Deshaun Watson. So Watson finally got some, I don't want to call it clarity, because there really isn't much clarity, but he got an answer on what his initial suspension is going to be. It was 6 games. A lot of people were surprised by that it was that lenient. And frankly, I'm not going to say I was surprised, because I heard some rumblings about it on Twitter and from various sources that it might only be 6 games. But it goes without saying I'm disappointed in the end result. And this isn't to shade, I believe her name's Sue Robinson, who was tasked with being the independent arbiter, because based on what I read, her conclusion to mete out this punishment, she had a process, she stuck to it, and it helped her probably remain impartial throughout this thing, which is what you have to do. And based off of that process, her ruling seemed sound.
I agree completely with that. Her explanation for the decision, it makes sense.
Yeah. However, that doesn't mean that Deshaun Watson only deserves 6 games. He certainly deserved more. And, this is more of the NFL paying for its past sins, maybe some of its current sins a little bit. I mean, because this is a situation where this judge ruled based off of previous situations that it's hard to say resemble this, because we've never seen anything of this magnitude from a player discipline situation. But the NFL doesn't have scheduled punishment for consistent abuse, consistent behavior over the course of multiple victims. And they just say 6 games for a first-time offense. Well, a first-time offense is kind of a loaded term, because he didn't do the offense one time. He did it 30 times, it seems. but this is the first time he's been pulled to the NFL disciplinary office and said, you've got to answer for what you did. In that sense, he's a first-time offender, and that's how he was treated.
Yeah, that really seemed to be kind of like the crux of Sue Robinson's decision is this is on the NFL. The NFL has handled these situations in a really underwhelming way in the past, whether it be the Ray Rice situation where they initially gave him like 6 games and then they saw the video and
games.
Or it was 2 games, and I think they tried to up it to 6 games after they saw the video. Or
they upped it to indefinite, and it didn't work because you can't
punish somebody twice, right? However, it worked out. He ended up getting off very, very lightly for that. Whether it be Kareem Hunt, like all these situations where the NFL has clearly underpunished players for any sort of domestic violence, sexual assault, or anything like that. Her decision was basically, well, that's what the NFL has done. And so until and unless they actually start to schedule these and get it into, whether it's the collective bargaining agreement or however they have to do that, I'm going off a precedent here. And I'm with you, Eric. I think that he deserves way more than 6 weeks. I think it's ridiculous that he's going to get to play this season. Meanwhile, Calvin Ridley, who bet on games after he had taken a leave of absence from the sport, is not going to be allowed to play for a year. I think that's ridiculous. But her decision to go off a precedent, I can respect that.
That's the issue that I have, is we're going off of precedent. This is an unprecedented situation.
Yeah.
Thankfully, nobody else has done this, to our knowledge. So why is she going off of precedent when this is so incredibly outrageous of a, crime that was committed, of an infraction, right? Like, it's all of that stuff that's happened. I feel like you can just throw it out because it doesn't compare in magnitude to what Deshaun Watson has done. Being a sexual predator for just trapping all of these women, just like that's just beyond the pale. Like, I can't even wrap my mind around it, and to use a precedent of previous punishments to determine what the punishment should be in this case, that just doesn't make any sense. Right? It doesn't match. Right? There's how many women was it? Like 24?
Yeah, I think it was
24
or something? 25.
So it's like, oh, well, 6 games for a first offense. I'm like, but there are 24 offenses. So, I mean, like, I can do math, right? Like, that seems extremely light. If it was me in charge, I don't think Deshaun Watson would need to worry about playing football in the NFL ever again. Like, this is so outrageous. And then 6 games, unbelievable.
Yeah, there are a couple of issues that I took with the general statement from Sue Robinson. I already talked about the first-time offender thing, which certainly doesn't jive with what actually happened. But she also seemed to believe that his behavior was quote-unquote non-violent, which was a mitigating factor. And violence isn't just when someone's battered or brutalized physically. It's when somebody's violated against their will. It's when their right to personal autonomy and privacy is taken away from them. And when they're coerced into doing things that they have no desire to do, that is a form of violence. Just because it doesn't result in broken bones or bruises or bloody noses doesn't mean that it's not violence. And I think that she missed the mark on that one pretty badly. And another thing is, yes, you can say you have to have a scheduled punishment. You have to have some type of process that leads you to X number of games. But like it or not, that precedent was thrown out the window with Deflategate. Okay, we talked a little bit about Deflategate on this podcast. Obviously, we started it well after that nonsense happened.
You
But
mean deflate? Remember, this is a gate-free podcast.
We're a gate-free.
you're right. I'm sorry. I will have to atone for that sin.
It's
But
$1 in the jar, Eric.
yes, indeed. It's almost like I said the R words. So the issue with this is that the NFL appealed, or Tom Brady, I should say, appealed his Deflategate suspension. Initially, the circuit court judge that picked up the case looked at it and said, he was ready to laugh the NFL out of court. He said, "You have no evidence that this even happened, yada, yada, yada. You failed to give notice," which is what we're talking about here of, that, taking a fart's worth of air out of a football is somehow going to result in getting suspended for 4 games. Clearly there's nothing on file for that. The whole process was broken, and I think we all agree with it. It was kind of a joke, and it seemed like it was just a response to what happened with Ray Rice and how they botched that one. So they needed to rule this one with an iron fist by getting their pound of flesh out of Tom Brady, of all people, which, based on the way his face looks right now, maybe they definitely got it. But so the
Oh my god.
He's looking a little gaunt.
Yeah, a little weird. But the bottom line is, after the NFL appealed that decision to overturn Brady's suspension, they got the win there at the appellate level. The 3 judges, 2 out of the 3 of them ruled the NFL has the right to do this based off of the broad language of conduct detrimental to the league. And that could mean anything, and the players agreed to it. So if the NFL says you acted in a way that was detrimental to the league, then they can suspend you for however long they want. They can punish you in any way that they want. And so they determined this is worth 4 games for Tom Brady, and so he got 4 games. Well, if the NFL determines that Deshaun Watson deserves an indefinite suspension with at least a year, and then we'll see later, then it seems like it or not, because I don't particularly like it, I think that's kind of crazy, that should be the rule you follow, because it's on the books. It's been done. Okay, and if the NFL goes to court with this thing, which it looks like they might, because they
have appealed it. The NFL has appealed this.
So here's my prediction of what's going to happen. The NFL is going to win their appeal to Roger Goodell, who is the NFL. Deshaun Watson is going to get his year-plus suspension or indefinite suspension or whatever language they use. Deshaun Watson is going to sue. They're going to take it to court, and however long that process takes, a year, whatever, ultimately the NFL is going to win again. And Watson is going to sit for as long as that is. It may not be this year, because as the appeal process goes out, they might get an injunction and say he's allowed to play. But it's going to happen eventually, and the NFL is going to continue to flex its muscles here. And I think that that's going to be the end result, is they're going to back up that precedent of, we can do what we want if we think your behavior fits the language of conduct detrimental to the league, and you're going to see Watson sitting for a long time. But then again, if you take it to court, you really don't know what you're going to get, and some judge might say, I don't agree with that. Like the first judge in the Brady case didn't agree with it. Somebody might say, no way, and then Watson walks free. But historically, it seems like the NFL wins these cases more often than they don't.
It's also worth pointing out, I think, that the NFL is not a court of law, right? Like this, it's, just a court of whatever. And they can do whatever they want to do.
What I'm not completely clear
Eric, like
on
you
is
said, they can just suspend him just cause, but there's a whole lot of just cause to suspend him. So, bye-bye.
So what I'm not completely clear on is who the NFL is appealing the decision to, because Roger Goodell is no longer in charge of player punishments. So like they're not appealing it to him, to my understanding.
Yes, they are. He's the guy that hears the appeal.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
So he's not allowed to hand down the initial punishment, but he can hand down the secondary punishment if they decide to appeal the initial decision of an independent arbiter.
Yeah, this is where things get this is where things get a little bit tricky. Where the court battle could be
pills here?
Yeah, where the court battle could be interesting is that if Roger Goodell says that, like in an appeal process, you have to probably reach a conclusion that Sue Robinson made her decision in error. Like, her logic was not sound. It wasn't airtight. And so in that case, you might actually have, you might have to actually do some work to get that done. However, again, with the Brady case, the initial circuit court judge's situation, he made his statement, he made his ruling, and it was scathing against the NFL, and it was airtight, and it ultimately didn't matter because you got two different judges up there to say, I don't agree with that. So that's ultimately what it's going to come down to. There's no way the NFL is going to just say, oh, 6 games is cool with me. It's just a matter of how deep does this go? How long is this legal battle going to take? It's going to be a show. And frankly, it pisses me off that it comes to this because at some point, you've got to sit there and say, I did something really, really wrong. But Deshaun Watson ain't doing that. He's insisting that he did nothing wrong, which is absolutely insane to me that he thinks he did nothing wrong. And they wanted 0 games for him. They wanted no punishment. That was a
bold-faced lie.
And we know that that's not true. So
don't pee on my forehead and tell me it's raining, Deshaun Watson, right? Like, it's what you did nothing wrong. Then what are we talking about here? You did nothing wrong. You did nothing.
Yep.
I don't know about that. That doesn't add up to me.
Yeah. So let's move to something that is not as bad, but similarly stupid. The Dolphins lost a first-round pick, and Stephen Ross, the Dolphins owner, was fined $1.5 million, which is couch cushion money for him, for tampering with Tom Brady and Sean Payton. For whatever they were trying to pull off.
Basically, they were talking to Tom Brady about like bringing him down to Miami before he left the Patriots. They did the same thing with Sean Payton before he announced his retirement from the Saints.
Well, that's tampering. So you lose your pick, you lose $1.5 million. But then another kicker in the story was that there was, quote, no evidence found of instruction to Brian Flores to tank for draft position. Yes, there was. It was called the 2019 Dolphins. Did you see that roster? Like, the intent was clear. We were.
I think the Ravens just scored on them again from week 1.
I mean, geez.
It's 105-10 now.
Like, I get it. I know what they mean. They need something incriminating, like a text or something written down or something beyond just Brian Flores saying it happened. But come on. We know what happened. We know what happened.
When you say you found no evidence, did you look for evidence? Right? You can find nothing without looking for anything, right?
Brian Flores pretty clearly suggested that he had evidence, and I don't view Brian Flores as an untrustworthy individual. I take what he said at face value. I believe that the NFL does not want to admit that an owner was encouraging or instructing a coach to tank for draft position because that is serious conduct detrimental to the league. That seriously brings into question the integrity of the shield. And that is something that the NFL will not admit to, especially when it's an owner, because the owners comprise the NFL. Mm-hmm. So I think that I felt like losing a first round pick was maybe a little bit overboard for tampering with Brady and Sean Payton, to be quite honest. But I think they did that because they wanted to send a message to Stephen Ross that, hey, we know that you did both of these things. We're only going to get you for the one, but you can't do either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tampering never results in this kind of steep punishment.
No, a first-round pick and $1.5 million. Like $1.5 million it's not a lot for Stephen Ross, but it is a lot of money compared to similar punishments that we've seen in the past. We usually don't see seven-figure fines.
A lot of money
in that
for
situation.
Yeah, and so the thing is, not only is it a big punishment for tampering, the punishments for tampering are usually bigger when the tampering actually works. When the guy ends up going to that team. In this case, neither Sean Payton nor Tom Brady are employed by the Dolphins and never have been. So, that has not happened yet. So the steep penalty of a first-round pick for this is unprecedented, and I would agree with you, Corey. That suggests that this is, a little bit of an extra shot in the ribs for tanking, and they don't want to say it out loud because that hurts their brand. We talked about this with Calvin Ridley, where your boy here predicted that Calvin Ridley would get more time than Deshaun Watson on account of the fact that Deshaun Watson's not going to stop us from watching football. But if we found out that a bunch of players were, gaming the system to grease their own pockets on bets or things like that, we would stop watching football because we don't think the game is actually being played on the up and up. So this is the same type of thing where the NFL can't have this being something that's on the record as fact, that one of the 32 owners was saying, hey, I'm going to put my thumb on the scale and impact the game being played honestly and tell coaches to lose and give them inducements to do so. That can't be the record.
Ravens just scored again on the Dolphins in 2019. So,
I was watching that game, and I remember that was before I really appreciated that Lamar Jackson was just an absolute stud, because he hadn't been up to that point because he only played like 8 games. But the entire time I was thinking, man, he's making some good throws, but these guys knew he could throw a little bit, right? Like, they watched his college tape. He could throw the ball. He can't just play, 11 in the box, right? Right? And, they didn't figure it out the whole damn game. All right, well, that's all we've got for professional football, unless I'm forgetting something or you guys want to talk about something else or, anything.
I guess there was the one thing we found out a little more about what kind of a pleasure it is to be around Kirk Cousins. Did you guys see that story from Mike Zimmer?
Jeez.
Was this about him and Zimmer? Or...
Yes, it was him and Zimmer.
Yeah, I shared that story on the chat.
Yeah, you shared that on the chat, and I read that. I was like, oh my God. To think that I used to like Kirk Cousins.
I mean, he's lucky he still has a functioning body, because Mike Zimmer could have killed that man.
Oh, he could have, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And I think there's a reasonable argument for why he should have.
Yep. That would have pissed me off. But, yeah. All right. I don't think we need to add.
We don't need to dive into the whole thing. It's out there for people to read.
Okay.
It's
giving
the
listeners homework.
It's a hoot. Yeah, we're giving our listeners homework. It's season 5,
contract,
adding something new.
Do your own
4
research.
hours a week.
No, don't do your own research.
Research this, because this is fun.
Yes, you can research this.
All right, Corey, real quick, tell us about the Tour de France. Whatever.
So I missed a good portion of it because I got married after like the first week of it, and then I was on my honeymoon, and I also didn't have access to YouTube TV because YouTube TV is annoying. But kind of a surprise when I got around to looking up who had won, because I was gonna wait and watch them, but honestly at this point there's so many stages I'm not gonna have time. So I looked it up, and Jonas Vingegaard won. This is a guy, he finished second last year, but he was not a guy that I really expected to win because Tadej Pogačar has been so dominant for the past 2 years. Pogačar won the young rider competition again and finished second overall, but huge win for Jonas Vingegaard. He won, I think it was like stage 10, and that was what got him the yellow jersey from Tadej Pogačar, and he held it all the way to the end. He even won a stage fairly late in the Tour de France. I think it might have been stage 18, wearing the yellow jersey. So those are a couple races I'm definitely going to want to go back and watch the last maybe 20 miles of. But yeah, big win for Jonas Vingegaard. Congratulations to him. He's a fun young rider to watch for sure. Not young enough to be in the young rider category, but he's like 27 or 28. He's fun to watch.
Yeah, I had no idea that those are the pronunciations of those two last names, Vingegaard and Pogačar.
Yep.
I was looking at him. I was like, wait, is Corey reading different names than I'm looking at? But
it looks like Vingegaard and Pogačar.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. But congratulations to them anyway. They obviously had a great tour. So
yes.
We'll jump to baseball now. Talk a little A's Han. Got plenty of good stuff there, and we'll let Corey talk about his Yankees too. Although he doesn't. He does have. Okay, he just has trade deadline there. Okay, so Evan and I went to an Orioles game in Cincinnati last Friday, and they won that game, and then proceeded to lose the next two against the Reds, who stink. So that wasn't great. But we'll talk a little bit of trade deadline stuff first, then talk about how the Orioles have been playing since the last time we spoke to y'all. So unfortunately, the Orioles made the difficult but frankly probably prudent decision to trade Trey Mancini. That was that yesterday or Monday? So he was traded to.
I think it was Monday.
So he was traded to the Houston Astros. He hit his first home run with the Astros today against the Red Sox, and I saw it show up on Twitter. It said Mancini home run. I got excited because I figured the Orioles hit a home run. And I remembered, right, he's not here anymore. But Trey was traded to the Astros for two pitching prospects from Houston, or maybe one of them came from Tampa Bay. It was a 3-team trade. A lot of moving parts there, but obviously the most significant part to Orioles fans right now is the fact that Trey Mancini is no longer an Oriole. So we've obviously had a lot of good things to say about Trey on this podcast, and that's going to continue because we love him. We appreciate everything he did in Baltimore. We appreciate his fight when he was dealing with stage 3 colon cancer and had to miss the entire 2020 season. We appreciate his relationship that he had with the city of Baltimore, with Mo Gabba when he was still with us. He's just a consummate pro and an even better guy off the field. And the Houston Astros are lucky to have him for however long they have him.
Absolutely. This is a trade that, kind of sucks in the moment, but it's a trade that had to be made just because, Trey Mancini, he probably wasn't coming back next year. He had a mutual option for next season. And apparently those don't usually get picked up. So he was probably going to walk at the end of this season anyway. And the Orioles are sort of pretending to be contenders right now. It's, fun and whatever. But this isn't a legitimate, pennant contending team. Let's be real here. So, the smart move, as much as we love Trey Mancini, the smart move is to trade him. And they got some pitching prospects back who I've never heard of, and they'll go down in the minors and be irrelevant until it's time to call them up. So, that's just the business of baseball. I do want to discuss the Trey Mancini's last at bat at Camden Yards. Yeah. Was just the craziest thing ever. So, it was the bottom of the 8th inning. Orioles are up 1-0. And I think it's Hayes is on second. And Mancini just hits a fly ball to right. And the Rays right fielder loses the ball in the sun. It bounces off of his left cheek, and he crumples to the ground. He's fine. He crumbles to the ground, and the ball rolls into the right field corner. Meanwhile, Hayes is coming to score, and he's waving at Mancini to come on around. The third base coach sends Mancini. The center fielder runs all the way to right field corner to get the ball and throw it in. There's a play at the plate, and Trey is safe. I'm like, what? I got emotional, right? It was Mo Gabba Day at Camden Yards, and we talked about Mo when he passed away a couple years ago. He was a boy who battled cancer his whole life, and he was blind and couldn't walk. But it's such a positive outlook on life and everything. He would call at the radio station. He was just so bubbly and energetic. And then, he and Trey Mancini were very close. And this even before Trey was diagnosed with cancer himself. So. For that to happen that way on Mo Gabba Day, I thought was touching.
Yep, fully agree. It was also there was some levity in it because watching Trey Mancini try to trudge around the bases was
oh my goodness,
was, some physical comedy. Piano was fully attached to his back as he was trying to make it 360 feet.
Not even bases. A baby grand, the full one, right?
Yep, the whole thing. 88 keys, baby. So let's talk about another trade the Orioles made. This one a little bit less of a gut punch, but maybe a little bit more of a surprise. Jorge Lopez, the Orioles all-star closer, was shipped to the Minnesota Twins yesterday, or not yesterday, Monday as well. And so he's now gone, and this is when Orioles Twitter started to just have an absolute frothing meltdown. And Buster Olney was mad again, and everybody's pissed off at the Orioles for.
When isn't Buster Olney mad about the Orioles? They live rent free in his head.
Somebody changed his Wikipedia page to suggest that his wife cheated on him with the Oriole birds. So maybe that's what happened. Oh, jeez.
That is brutal.
Anyway, Jorge Lopez is having a great year, but Evan and I talked about this a lot when we were gallivanting around the country, when we were, doing anything else, even on this podcast, maybe a little bit, that, as good as Jorge Lopez has been this year, it feels like it's maybe a little bit of fool's gold because he's never been good before and then just kind of has caught lightning in a bottle as a closer this year. Has shown a little bit of shakiness lately, but these are the guys that you almost have to trade because they're replaceable as hell, right? Like you can find another guy that was a waiver claim, couldn't hack it as a starter. You toss him in the bullpen, and he has a great year. Like we're not talking about a guy who's looking like the second coming of Trevor Hoffman or Mariano Rivera or Dennis Eckersley here. We're talking about a guy who has been poor throughout his career, who has managed to have a great year this year, which, credit to him for that. But I'm not betting the house that that's going to hold up, especially for a guy who, who knows how long he's actually going to be here. I mean, the Orioles have Felix Bautista, who looks like the real deal at the back end of the bullpen. And
home run today.
I think that this move was more prudent than people want to give it credit for. The return was surprisingly worse than what we got from Mancini, despite the fact that Jorge Lopez is an all-star and, I think there's maybe a little bit more years of control there, but, he's a guy that had a great start to the season, and he's now playing for a team that actually figures to be in the pennant race versus the Orioles, who are, as much as we love seeing them win, feels like they're pretending a little bit right now. So I don't take any issue with Mike Elias and the Orioles front office sticking to the plan and not being enticed by chasing a sixth spot in the playoffs or the third wild card or whatever. It's frankly not worth it to gut your team or to be soft buyers like some idiots wanted on Twitter to try to gear up to maybe win 84 games and sneak into the playoffs and get unceremoniously bounced. And then next year, people start playing back at their level and the team isn't good again, and you just wasted an opportunity to get some better prospects.
Absolutely. I completely agree with all that. This is a move that had to be made. Jorge Lopez was found off the scrap heap. Like the Royals got rid of him. The Royals, who suck, they got rid of him. He shows up in Baltimore, and he's also terrible as a starting pitcher all of last year. And then they just put him in the bullpen, and he just starts mowing people down at the back of the bullpen. Like, oh, maybe there's a little something here. And that's the thing. It's just a little something, right? We're getting all worked up and attached and stuff. There's really not much there, to be honest. So, the Orioles had to make this move. They got, again, some guys. We'll see what happens. But, there's no guarantee that Jorge Lopez is going to be good next season, right? Like, what is our expectation level realistically?
Yeah, that's when you get burned, is when you bring a guy back expecting him to be the same guy. It reminds me a little bit of Jim Johnson, where in 2012 he was, really good for most of the year, but you could tell it wasn't going to hold up. And then 2013 he was a disaster class. So
he got 50 saves in 2013 as well. It's just he blew a bunch of them too.
Yeah.
For example, when he had me staying up till the middle of the night in Arizona watching, and then Orioles about to win until Jim Johnson comes in, and now the Orioles lose.
Yep. So let's actually talk about what the Orioles have done as a team on the field since our last show, which was an eternity ago. The Orioles are 17-7. They guaranteed the second straight winning month, which they hadn't had since, I believe, was that 2017? The last time they had one of those. So yeah, we're obviously pretty happy with that. The Orioles were in the midst of a 10-game winning streak while we were in Durham getting ready for Corey's wedding, as we were watching, Evan and I were watching the game on his phone at another baseball game, which was not as competitive, but still fun because the Durham Bulls were slaughtering the Memphis Redbirds.
Durham Bulls were up 16-0 at one point 2 days ago in their game.
Yeah, it's 13-0 against the Redbirds, and just hitting tank shots. Got free steak and stuff.
We did.
Yeah, so the Orioles have been great. We're going to give all the credit to Adley Rutschman because he's awesome. But I do mean this in sincerity, aside from the Adley vibes and, the buzz around the team, because, the Orioles' top prospect and number 1 overall pick, sort of the guy that was the start of the rebuild in a lot of ways, got to the show, and, that's cool. He's also really good. Like, this guy is legit. If he had played the whole year, he might have been an all-star selection. He's already the best player on the team, and that means more than it used to because the Orioles actually have some decent players. It's not just a team that's only going to win 55 games or whatever, or 52 like they won last year. He's legit, and if he plays like this next year full-time, you're going to see him in the All-Star game. You're going to see him in the MVP conversation because he is that good, and he absolutely has lived up to the hype so far.
It's been amazing to watch. Every Adley Rutschman at bat is must-see TV. Whenever I get frustrated and they're losing, I'm like, well, let me look at the lineup. When's Adley coming back? And make sure I don't miss that. Because he's just amazing. Like, it's been like when Wieters came up, it wasn't immediate success for him. It wasn't as magical, and the vibes weren't as as positive and just heavenly almost. Like it's just it's like Adley's walking around and it's just the air around him is glowing or something. It's indescribable. So to have him on our team, just makes me so happy. He's somebody who has a really good batting eye at the plate. He's a switch hitter. He makes really good contact. The defense behind the plate is amazing. The way he works with the pitchers, always pumping them up, and the little meetings on the way back to the dugout after every inning. Like, all of it is just great. I find no faults in his game whatsoever. Nothing. He's perfect. I wish the Orioles had 10 more Adley Rutschmans.
If the Orioles had 10 more Adley Rutschmans, the Yankees would be competing for a wild card spot because not too many
Orioles
teams
win all the games.
Yeah,
every night.
It would be tough times for them. But other than just Adley, like I had some thoughts on what Austin Voth said. I think a couple of days ago. Of all people, I'm talking about Austin Voth in somewhat of a positive way on this podcast, which is a bit of a surprise. But he mentioned that, since he's gotten to Baltimore, like just the guys in the scouting department, the front office have been such a big help to him figuring out how to pitch better, how to, work counts, how to do certain things on the mound. And this is something where you heard the opposite of that before with the Orioles, where it was always these guys don't know how to develop pitchers. They don't know how to maximize talent. They tell certain pitchers that they drafted with, first round picks, they can't throw their best pitch because they don't like cut fastballs. Like that doesn't happen anymore. Like the front office helps the pitchers. The front office makes the pitchers better. And that's something that I think is underrated. It's more than just talent. It's the fact that baseball is such a game of inches. Like you can say that about anything I know, but when it comes to hitting and pitching,
it's a game of millimeters.
Yeah, it's more than just a matter of can you swing the bat really hard and make good contact? It's can you figure out what's going to happen next? Like it's a strategy session every at bat between the hitter and the pitcher, and even sometimes the fielders. And that part of the game can't always be perceived from where the pitcher stands or where the hitter stands. Sometimes you need the eye in the sky, and you need to have people in the back who know how to break that down and give you the good information so that you can learn from it. And it seems like the Orioles actually have that, which is why these pitchers who, frankly, aren't that talented are all playing above their heads right now.
Yeah, it's been amazing to watch all these just bunch of randos from wherever, right? Like a bus stop or something. Where did they find Joey Crable and Cionel Perez and Felix Bautista and Voth? We know where they got him. Jeez. And Jordan Lyles, right? These guys, who are these people? And they're all having a great year.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Yep.
You gotta not only acquire talent, but you have to make it the best it can possibly be. And the previous regime didn't understand that.
Before we move on to Corey's Yankees, I just wanted to give a shout out to Great American Ballpark and the Cincinnati Reds for being gracious hosts of these two hooligans on this podcast. As we got to, enjoy the Orioles getting a win on the road. I'd never been to Cincinnati, never been to Great American Ballpark, but it was a nice venue. I really liked being there. I would definitely go back, and also helped that we got the win. So thank you to Cincinnati.
Barely.
We love you. And it won
Yes.
6-2.
But it was 2-2 in the ninth.
Yeah, it took a while. Yeah.
And
All right. Oh, go ahead, Evan.
I mean, the Reds had Votto up with like runners on second and third in the eighth inning. I'm like, well, we're done.
They're playing Dolly Parton, which is going to turn into that song by whoever that does that song that Evan Longoria used to walk up for.
Yes, with the violins.
Oh my God! All right, Corey. Tell us about the Yankees and some of the stuff they did at the deadline and what's going on with them.
Yeah,
And how much they suck, apparently. They lost to the Mariners today.
Gosh, the series.
Yeah. Again. So I'll start with the trade deadline. Kind of a surprise move was that the Yankees sent Jordan Montgomery to the Cardinals. Montgomery was in the middle of finally having a pretty decent season pitching for the Yankees, and they sent him down the road to St. Louis. They also dealt Joey Gallo to the Dodgers. I have no idea on earth why Los Angeles wanted him, but all I can say is thank God he's gone, because he was terrible. He was abysmal this season for us. But on the acquisition side, Yankees picked up Frankie Montas and Lou Trevino from the Athletics, which are a couple of huge pickups. I mean, Lou Trevino's not quite what he was last year, but he's still a solid, relief pitcher. And Montas is one of the best pitchers in baseball right now. I mean, he's been absolutely outstanding. He is an ace level guy for the Yankees, which is good because our ace is not pitching like an ace. Case in point, today he gave up 6 runs before he got his second out of the game. So Garrett Cole, why don't you go ahead and take a back seat, my friend, because we actually have a good pitcher now in house.
Yes, Cole, you need to consult the Chart chart. 'Cause that was stinky today.
So those moves all came like right up against the deadline. The Yankees also got Andrew Benintendi from the Royals last week. I think he got here on Friday or Saturday maybe. But so far he's been doing okay for them. Yesterday was not a good game for him. I still need to check his stats from today, but both were losses anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much what the individual players did. As far as what's been going on since the last show, the Yankees have been not good. The Orioles have been 17-7 since then. The Yankees are 12-14. They have a losing record since July 5th, which is a pretty dramatic turn from what they had been doing up until then. All the more reason for us not to go on hiatus ever again during baseball season, because clearly when we have regular shows, the Yankees do well, and when we don't, they don't. So,
I thought the Yankees were going to go 152-10 this year. Everybody was talking about how great they are, and they're going to be better than 1927 and better than the 01 Mariners and better than the 2016 Cubs and better than the 1907 Cubs or something like that.
Yeah, that's
and
looking like that might be
then
out
what
the
happened?
window. But want to talk a little bit about Aaron Judge, because one other reason that I'm a little bit sad about the Yankees, besides their losing record in the past month, is we still don't know what's going to happen with Aaron Judge. We don't know if he's going to be a Yankee next year, and if the Yankees mess this up, it's going to be really hard for me to reconcile that as a fan of this team. This is a really talented player. He's not young. He's pretty old because he got started pretty old. But he is in the middle of one of the best seasons that any of us have been alive for individually. There are some other guys who have had terrific seasons in other ways. Certainly you look at guys like Ichiro Suzuki, who's had some pretty amazing seasons. Ken Griffey
Barry
Jr.
Bonds
has had
would
some
like a
amazing
word.
seasons. Barry Bonds had some amazing seasons in our lifetimes. But, this is special, and this is something that we haven't seen anything like it really since Barry Bonds, or at least, Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa. But, those were tainted. So, this is, assuming he's clean, which, these days seems like a safer assumption than it maybe once was, but I guess you don't know for sure. But if he is clean, this is a really special season. This is the best power season, or at least on pace for the best power season the Yankees have ever had. So from July 21st to July 30th, the Yankees played 9 games. Aaron Judge hit 9 home runs. He finished the month of July with 42 home runs on the season. That is a record for the Yankees. That was one more than Babe Ruth hit when he set the record for home runs before August 1st. Oh, and by the way, Aaron Judge then hit number 43 on August 1st. Aaron Judge has 9 multi-home run games this season. That is a Yankees record for an entire season, and we've still got 2 months to go. He's hit 3 walk-off home runs this year. That ties Mickey Mantle's Yankees record for walk-off home runs in an entire season. We still got 2 months to go. So this is a guy who is hitting lights out. He is hitting for power. He's hitting for a pretty good average. His average is .333. That's
the Yankees were playing him in
pretty damn
center
good.
field against the
They're
Orioles.
playing him in center field for some games.
Wait, hold on. You said his batting average is 333?
Yes.
I'm seeing 298 on the website. Are we talking for a stretch or?
You know what? I'm sorry. I was looking at his July. That was his July number. I thought
that's all good. I
yeah.
was just gonna say. I was like, did I read that wrong?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I thought that was his average as of the end of July, but that was just in July apparently.
Okay.
But in any case, I mean, he is hitting for a pretty strong average. 298 is, obviously, you kind of want to see that 300, but 298 is solid. He's got no PS over 1,000.
Really good.
His, I'm going to be really sad if he's not a Yankee next year. And it's going to, like I said, it's going to be really hard to reconcile that as a Yankees fan. I don't need Aaron Judge to be on the Yankees to be a Yankees fan, but I do need the Yankees front office to not make bonehead decisions for me to be a Yankees fan. And this seems like just a gargantuanly bonehead decision. Yeah,
it feels a little bit like, I don't know. I don't follow the Yankees super closely. Obviously, I'm familiar with what they do because
you're familiar with their oeuvre.
Yeah, they're typically very good, and I watch baseball, and so the very good teams get the most attention. But it feels like the Yankees organization sometimes doesn't realize that they're on a more level playing field than they ever were before, and they can't just get away with being the Yankees to get good players. So when you've got them in the building you've got to keep them in the building beyond just, oh, we've got the most money so we can shell it out, or we'll just find a replacement or something like that. It's like, no, this guy, you're not getting another Aaron Judge anytime soon. Just being honest. It's not going to happen. You kind of got lucky you got this guy because he was a bum until he wasn't. Right? Like he was an afterthought as a prospect. He was 24 years old when he got to the league. In 2016, he was terrible when he got called up. And then suddenly in 2017, he's like one of the best hitters of all time. And it was really, really weird. Like, and I agree with you, Corey, that it almost feels strange because when Judge was a rookie, I guess 2017, he still had rookie eligibility. He got all the attention. ESPN was covering him nonstop. They were showing his batting practices at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was nauseating for people who don't like the Yankees. But he's been significantly better this year, legitimately chasing some historic milestones, and the vibes aren't the same. I don't know if that's because he might leave. I don't know if it's because maybe baseball's just fallen a lot further in the last 5 years than I realized in terms of overall attention, but he's not really getting his due right now from anybody involved. And,
least of all the Yankees.
I generally don't clamor for more Yankees coverage, but what this guy is doing is nuts, right? He could legitimately hit 60 home runs this year. And given the fact that he is a Yankee, and the guys that hit 60 home runs and 60-plus home runs before the steroid era were all Yankees, it seems like a big deal and something that should be, should get more attention. But as for the team as a whole, I said this back in, mid-May or April or whatever, when the Yankees were off to this great start. I was like, they're going to have a stretch where they suck for a little while, where they go 500, a little bit below for a month or so. And that's all that's happened here. There's nothing to get worked up about. No. I mean, they were playing above their heads because anybody that's on pace to win 125 games is always playing above their heads. That's just not realistic for a baseball team to be that good. But they're still certainly among the best teams in the American League. It's them and the Astros, in my opinion, as the bona fide contenders. But, of course, anybody that makes the playoffs has a shot.
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees do still have the second best record in baseball now because the Dodgers have 3 fewer losses. They're equal in wins. But, the Yankees had to have that bad of a month for anybody to catch them.
Well, the Dodgers have been incredible, too.
They have been. Yeah, I mean, the Dodgers' run differential is at 205. The Yankees is at 206. There was a huge gap the last time we spoke on this podcast between the two.
Oh, yeah. Evan, it sounded like you had something to add.
Yeah, just with the Aaron Judge thing, if the Yankees don't pay him, there's going to be teams lining up to pay him, right? We know the Angels will pay him. They'll pay anybody.
Hopefully he goes somewhere less lame. We don't need to
have 3 of the best players ever on a losing team?
Not making the playoffs. Just sitting there.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's about the money, right? And the Angels have a lot of money to spend, and a lot of money to spend poorly, apparently.
By the way,
somebody's got to be in the lineup when Rendon is out next year for face mushing a guy with his left hand because his right arm was broken. So stuff like that. The Angels will pay him. The Cubs will pay him. The White Sox, and, I mean, maybe the Orioles will pay him. It could happen. If you let a guy hit free agency, that's all 29 other teams are now in the mix for his services.
Well, a lot of people don't think he'll go to the A's because, the create a park situation, but we could just as easily uncreate the park. Why not just go back to the old way when you got Aaron Judge there, right? You can do whatever you want.
Exactly.
If Aaron Judge played in Camden Yards, he'd probably hit 80 home runs in a season.
He plays at Yankee Stadium, and he's on pace for, 65
Yeah, but he seems to love your guys' park.
Well, he loves facing Orioles pitching is probably more likely.
Because the Orioles
he doesn't love the park anymore because they made the left field wall super far back, and he was complaining about that a few months back. And then he decided, hey, I'm Aaron Judge, I'll just hit it further, and now it goes out of the park. So he's clearly made the adjustment to the.
He hit a ball over both bullpens in their previous matchup. right? Like
Yeah.
where the statues are. That's like 500 feet from
Yeah,
home
it's like
plate.
Carlos Correa hit a bomb out there one time.
Oh,
I was just
God.
like, oh my god, it's unbelievable. I wish he was an Oriole too.
Yeah.
We'll take him too. He's got like a opt out or something like
He's
that.
got an
So,
opt-out, yeah.
yeah,
And Manny's
come on.
got an opt-out after next season.
Hey man, come on home. We're
Mhm.
ready to win.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit of other trade deadline stuff that's happened because it was quite a bit. The big headline, which we've known about for a couple of weeks, but obviously didn't talk about because we weren't here. Juan Soto finally was traded, and the Padres won the Soto sweepstakes. They also got Josh Bell as I don't want to call him a throw-in because Bell
Bell's
could hit
pretty
some
good
dingers.
too.
Yeah, he could hit some dingers. I was a little bit weirded out by it because I was like, but they've already got Hosmer and Voit, so it felt like Bell was unnecessary. But then they got rid of both of those guys anyway, so it's all good.
And Hosmer was supposed to be part of the deal to the Nats, but he was like, I don't think I'm going to Washington. And somebody looked and said, oh, yeah, they're on your no-trade list. So apparently he had 10 teams on his no-trade list. So he didn't go there. Padres figured out some way to still get Soto and Bell, and then Hosmer wound up going to Boston instead.
So the thing is with the Padres is I know that they've been trying to get off that Hosmer contract for a while now. They were thinking about that last year when he was considered tradable, and apparently because the vibes were pretty good around San Diego before they collapsed. The big guys like Manny and Tatis didn't want Hosmer traded because I guess he's a likable clubhouse guy. I will never like Eric Hosmer ever, but that's personal. I don't think Evan will either because of what he did as a Royal against the Orioles in the playoffs. Can't stand him. But
like 8 years ago.
But I
no, I'm not over it yet.
But I acknowledge that that's me being me, and it seems like people around baseball actually like the guy. But he had a huge contract, and frankly, he's all right. He's an okay player, but he's nothing special. And Josh Bell certainly is outperforming him this year, and probably is cheaper and doesn't have nearly as long of a contract as Hosmer did. So they were happy to get off of that one. But I did find it humorous how irrelevant Hosmer was to the trade, because when somebody says I'm not going, normally that blows up a trade. But the Nats were like, no, we don't care. We want the prospect. He doesn't matter. And then they throw in Luke Voit, who was like gung-ho when they got Soto, because it's like, sweet baby, we're going to contend for the NL pennant. We might win a World Series. And it's like, nah, buddy, you got to go. Josh Bell's taking your spot too because you suck. Yeah. And you can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
So he got shipped to DC instead. So it was just a whole ordeal. And frankly, again, this is like, we have two anti-Nats people on this podcast. So I'll admit it freely. I don't like the Nats, neither does Evan. And while Corey used to have an affinity for him, seemingly has let that kind of go away.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of went away even before before their World Series run, and I'm not gonna jump on a bandwagon just because they finally got good. Like I'm not the Nats fan. I don't hate the Nats, but I'm not.
Well, at this point, I'd be jumping on a sinking ship. So
yeah.
But I honestly, just as objectively looking at it, they didn't get enough for this guy. Like it didn't. No. They got 2 top 100 prospects. They got Mackenzie Gore, who was a top prospect at one point, but so far in the league has been pretty mediocre as a starting pitcher, although it has been a pretty small sample size. I didn't see this big ass return that more than 2 years of control for friggin' Juan Soto should return. And it felt like they might have had better offers somewhere else, but maybe they felt like some of the offers that the Cardinals had made were, they had a lot of major league ready talent, and the Nats aren't going to be ready to contend anytime soon. Like, they are in year 0 of the rebuild, it seems. So maybe it didn't align with the timeline. Maybe they're poorly run. Maybe the learners just don't care because they're selling the team. It's a mess, because this is the type of thing that shouldn't happen. You got to keep somebody. Like, even the Orioles kept somebody. They picked the wrong guy, but they kept somebody. They kept Chris Davis around. And, the Nats haven't kept anybody around. Like, they're all just poof, gone.
Yeah, it seems
Rendon gone. Harper gone. Scherzer, Turner, and now Soto gone.
You would think that having Juan Soto would help you sell the team.
It's preferable to have somebody that goes in seats. Like, Evan talked about it with Adley Rutschman. When he's up at the plate, we watch. Even if the Orioles are down 7-2, even if the Orioles were 10 games or 20 games under 500, having that star player that is must-see TV. It was the same thing when Manny Machado played for the Orioles. You tuned in, even if the Orioles sucked, because you might see him do something amazing.
Yeah, what do
Well,
the
Juan
Nats
Soto
have
does
now to
amazing
put
things a lot.
people in the seats? The Nats don't have a draw anymore.
No. Like, who is it? Steven Strasburg? Where's he?
Not playing.
He hasn't appeared
On the
in
shelf.
3 years. He's pitched 25
He's pitched
innings
25 innings.
since 2019.
Yeah, I mean it's the same deal with Steph Curry and the Warriors and with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, right? When you have a star player, your franchise is more valuable because it gets more eyeballs to the TV set.
Yep.
So trading Juan Soto just didn't make sense to me in that regard. And then, like you said, Eric, they didn't get enough back for him. It's impossible to get enough back for that guy, right? He's on a Hall of Fame trajectory, and you're just going to send him away for some prospects, right? Like, prospects.
And the Nats don't even have a Klay Thompson or a Draymond Green.
Yeah, no, they have whoever's at the end of the bench. They want Iguodala at his current age, right? Those are the guys that they have right now. Just Victor Robles, who can't hit.
Iguodala would probably be better than anybody the Nats have on their roster now that Soto and Bell are gone.
Yeah,
it's
ridiculous.
They could have at least kept Bell. Like, Bell is not necessarily a huge draw,
don't they
but
have
he's
Nelson
a decent
Cruz?
player. They don't have anything now.
Yeah, they did sign Nelson Cruz. He's really old though.
Yeah, Nelson Cruz doesn't count anymore.
Like, he was spectacular when, like, for a guy that age, like last year, but he's 41 years old. The wheels can fall off any time, and it looks like the wheels have fallen off.
Were the wheels even on when he botched that fly ball in 2011 in the World Series? Right?
He was going to win World Series MVP, or he won
11
ALCS.
years ago.
Yes, and he's somehow still good, except for now. He's not good anymore.
Except for now. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
washed. The Nationals are a mess. One thing that's really irritating me, I was listening to Tony Kornheiser's show, and all Tony's a Nats fan, and his son Michael's a Nats fan, and all the whining from the Nationals fans about, we were just in the World Series and now we suck, and what are we going to do? I'm giving up my tickets and stuff. Like, come on, really? Y'all are this soft? You've got to be kidding me. Just try rooting for the Orioles. The Orioles went through this in 2018 when, they only won 47 games, and, that team had Manny Machado won it, and they were still awful. They traded away everybody and got back literally nothing, it turns out. And the whole organization had to be rebuilt from scratch, and it's taken a long time. So it seems that the Nationals are on the precipice of the same thing, right? They're starting from literally zero, and all the fans are, this is the worst thing that has ever happened to anybody.
The difference is that going into that for you guys as Orioles fans, you had a reason for hope because y'all had Elias. Y'all had people who seemed
No, we
like
didn't have him. He took over after 2018.
Oh, well, in any case, y'all felt some sort of confidence. The thing that, like, the people who you have know what they're doing, have a plan, are going to stick to it. The Nats don't have a plan. The Nats don't have people with a plan. One now. The Nats' plan is to develop all these really good players. The Nats' plan is to finish so bad that they get the first overall pick, get a really good player, develop them, have them be fantastic, and then get rid of them.
Yeah,
that's the Nationals' whole plan.
Well, I agree. The whining is particularly annoying because we understood that the Nats' competitive window to win a World Series started in 2012, and it ran for 8 seasons. Like, they were consistently in the playoffs, winning the division, picked by Sports Illustrated and everybody else to win the World Series just about every year, and they managed to squeeze one out at the very end of the window. And now they suck. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the natural progression of baseball. After you failed and failed and failed in the postseason, especially as DC sports fans that root for the Caps and watch them fail for 12 years in a row and then manage to get over the hump, they should have been overjoyed that they got that World Series because that was the very last chance that they were going to have, and everybody knew it. In fact, that team had no business winning the World Series.
No, they didn't.
Right? Like Bryce Harper was gone at that point. They started off terribly. We mocked them on this podcast.
Yeah, we did. That was like
they had three.
They were like a couple games ahead of the Orioles at one point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like approaching Memorial Day, they were barely ahead of the Baltimore Orioles, who were terrible that year. So that season was a miracle in the sense that they should have lost in the wild card game. They were down 3-0 to the Brewers. Josh Hader choked. The dude booted the ball in right field and let all of the runs score on one base hit.
Soto.
Yes, and then the Dodgers choked away the game in Game 5 with Kershaw giving up 2 straight jacks because they decided to bring him out of the bullpen for some reason. And
We're
then
still
the
waiting
Astros,
on the Cardinals to show up in the NLCS.
yes, and then the Astros completely melted down at the end of that series. So it was really just a team of destiny thing that allowed them to cash out their chips right before things got ugly. So they should be happy they won that because they frankly shouldn't have. And if they didn't, then they'd just be another bad franchise with no wins. And to expect anything more than, 8 years of contention plus a World Series, it's a little much. I mean,
one thing I will never accuse Washington fans of is knowing how to be a baseball fan. Like that is one thing that like Baltimore fans know how to be baseball fans.
We've been suffering since forever, man. Like
Baltimore fans don't know how to be.
1954.
Baltimore fans don't generally know how to be football fans, but they sure know how to be baseball fans.
I mean,
the football team's kind of new.
Yeah, which is fair for the Nats fans.
But, right,
the team is
you
relatively
can use
new.
the exact. The Nats are even more new than the Ravens.
Yeah. So, like, I get it a little bit. Like, the thing is, the Nats also got really, really lucky when they decided to be absolutely horrible because they were able to get 2 generational talents right off the bat. I mean, most teams get someone like Tim Beckham as the first overall pick. They get Steven Strasburg and then Bryce Harper the next year. I mean, that's just 2 guys who you can't possibly make bad. They're too talented for that. And so that really set them up to be able to build a contender. And it's not going to be that easy because, as some Nats fans have pointed out, they don't develop anybody that's not a sure thing. Like Juan Soto is great, sure, but Victor Robles stinks, man. And he was supposed to be the guy, and he's trash.
Carter Keyboom, remember him? He was supposed to be something.
Their pitching has generally been pretty horrible outside of Strasburg and guys they've acquired in free agency too. So, just not great development going on with the Nats. But we spent, I think, enough time talking about them.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about the Padres because they did some other stuff.
Yeah. Also got Josh Hader and Brandon Drury. Speaking of Josh Hader,
Brandon Drury was the only guy in the Reds lineup that Ed and I were scared of when we were there. We're like, oh, look at that guy's OPS. Obviously, scared of Joey Votto too because he's Joey Votto. But Drury was the only guy with a positive weighted runs created plus.
He was the only guy hitting over 230 on their whole lineup.
Jeez.
Yep. And somehow we consistently got him out, but we couldn't get Jonathan India out. I don't get it.
Yeah. Or whoever their number 9 batter was on Friday.
That catcher was batting 128 coming into the game. He got on base the first 3 times he came up.
Whoever that guy was. I don't even know his name.
I don't care either. But anyway, Josh Hader, big acquisition. It's kind of a weird situation with the Brewers because they're in first place.
Yeah.
And they trade away their closers. So
and they're
I
only
don't.
a game
I don't,
up. 2 games up on St. Louis. That's not a lot of wiggle room to, to fall down.
What?
The Brewers just got walked off by the Pirates in the 9th inning. If only they had their closer.
It's really hard to find a good closer. It feels like John Gruden trying to find a pass rusher. It's like trading Khalil Mack and then being like, oh, we can't get to the quarterback. What are you doing?
Yeah. Well, the game was tied going into the 9th. They weren't leading, but still.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. That's when you would pitch that guy.
Yeah, they used is that Devin Williams? I think he's on.
I don't know.
I think he's on.
Well, Devin Williams is great.
He has been good, but he just gave up that walk-off home run.
But here's the thing: like everybody that says, "Oh, we have Devin Williams," I'm like, okay, then why not have both guys? Right? Like having
you want to have a setup man and a closer.
It's a lot
Yeah.
easier to win when you only have to win through 7 versus 8 in order to feel comfortable that you're going to end up winning a playoff game.
Like
And
that's
they
what the
just
Yankees had back when Dylan Betances was good and was the setup man for
Oh yeah, him.
right.
for Chapman.
Yeah, for Chapman. But yeah, Dylan Betances, remember that guy?
What happened
Yeah.
to him? He was really
Disappeared into thin
He
air.
was really good and then just lost it all like that.
good. Can happen with relief pitchers.
Yeah,
it really
can.
can. But
I want to bring up with the Padres. So their lineup today is just freakish. So they're 2 through 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys. So it's Soto, Machado, Bell, Cronenworth, and Drury. Drury looks like he hit a grand slam in the first inning.
Oh wow.
And the Padres took the lead 5-0 and now lead 5-1. Manny's got 2 hits already. So good luck to everybody in the National League. This lineup is a wagon.
their best player's not even there yet.
Yeah,
Like Tatis
exactly.
isn't even there yet. Are
Yeah.
you kidding me? Oh my
Uh-huh.
god, that's gonna be a lot of fun. Like,
Oh, yeah.
that is going to be like the Padres have already been a fun team to watch, even with Tatis on the shelf, just because Machado's really carried them throughout the first half of the year, and he's obviously a stud. But man, that's
Ooh.
they're going for it, and I really really dig it.
And Padres at Dodgers this weekend
Ooh,
for a 3. Yeah.
wait,
Yeah.
appointment TV is
Ooh-wee.
back, baby.
Sunday night baseball too.
So I'm going to take a page out of Draymond Green's book and say I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Boston also got Tommy Pham and sent Christian Vasquez to Houston. Tommy Pham of infamy throughout the season because he takes beef with people using their IR slots for injured players. Who would have knew?
Yes. And
God.
resorting to physical violence on camera.
And also getting thrown out stealing, even though he had just an enormous jump on Felix Bautista because you don't run on Adley Rutschman. I taped the game when they showed the rerun, started at midnight, and then the next day just hit the fast forward button like 3 hours into the game just to see that play because everybody on Twitter was going nuts. It lived up to the hype. The throw was absolutely spectacular, just right on the money,
Okay.
just
I don't think
outstanding.
I've seen the play yet.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So another little bit of news or more news. Whit Merrifield was dealt from the Royals to Toronto. Apparently he's unvaccinated. That might be an issue, but let me give me my take on this real quick. There's about 60 games left, 55-ish, depending on what team you play for. That's a lot of games to not get paid for. So he's going to get vaccinated. Let's just call it what it is. He's getting vaccinated.
Yeah, it's very interesting because he would not get vaccinated to be able to go up and play against Toronto a few weeks ago. And now there's some discussion that he has not made a decision yet. And so if he doesn't get vaccinated, he can only play in their games in the United States. He can't go up and play their home games.
Oh,
That's no
he's
good.
just hanging out in the middle of Lake Ontario. Like
That would be,
it's just.
I would find that situation hilarious if that's
That's
how this
like-
plays out.
I find
That's
it
got
hilarious
Kyrie
already.
vibes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's Kyrie
Yeah.
Irving vibes. Exactly. It's
Except Whit
ridiculous.
Merrifield's not as good as Kyrie Irving, so
Yeah.
there's that. Yeah, it's interesting though because Anthony Santander was unvaxxed and he wasn't able to play in the Orioles series up at Toronto. He's vaxxed now, so missing 3 game checks was enough for him to say, "Oh, maybe I should just
4?
do this." Oh, he missed 4. I didn't
Yeah.
realize it was a 4-game set. So hopefully Whit Merrifield does the smart thing. If he doesn't, well, sucks for
That's
him
too
and
bad.
sucks for the Blue Jays, I guess.
It's not my
Um,
money. It's not
it's
going to be
not my
his
money,
either
it's-
if he doesn't get
And
vaccinated.
it's not my team, so I don't really care if
Yeah.
the Blue Jays blow this thing.
I kind of hate both of those teams, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, like the Blue Jays are easier to like because they got Vladdy Jr., but it's still a division rival, and they still have vibes of bad times. So, all right. So Noah Syndergaard has returned to the NL East in the form of a Philadelphia Philly. He was traded from the Angels. Didn't they just sign him this season? He's already gone.
Yes, and he's already
That's-
gone back to the NL East.
Well, he hasn't really been relevant, so I don't think this move's a huge deal. But Thor's cool, so we like him. And another little bit of news: Jacob DeGrom made his
Trying to throw a
return.
fastball.
Yeah, Jacob
He
DeGrom made his return yesterday against the Nationals, wanted to face Soto, and literally missed him by hours.
What I was kind of hoping was that the Nats would have to face DeGrom, and that Soto would end up getting traded to the Mets, so they have to face both of them, just to add to the misery.
Goodness
But,
gracious.
But
The
that
Nationals ended up
didn't work out.
winning that game.
Really?
The DeGrom game. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. He got a no decision. It was 1-1 when he left. But
I guess some things never
he
change.
went 5
for
innings,
Jacob
only
DeGrom.
needed 59 pitches to get through 5 innings. So, worked
He was dealing.
efficiently. They're obviously going to ease him back in and everything, but worked efficiently, only gave up 1 run. And I had him in my lineup. I often would not start somebody in their first start back, but I was not going to miss a DeGrom start.
Oh, you can't. You gotta have him in the lineup.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about some unfortunate news. Vince Scully passed away yesterday. For those that don't know, and I'm sure most people do know, Vince Scully was the longtime Dodgers play-by-play and color commentator for
he did it
that
all
team.
himself.
He was all by himself. He was also
For
a renowned.
67 years.
Yes, he also called several World Series, big football games. He called the catch game for the 49ers. His resume speaks for itself, but as someone who bought the extra innings package from for baseball, I watched quite a few Dodgers games late at night when the Mariners were terrible. I'd flip over the Dodgers because I just didn't want to deal with them. And it was a delight listening to Vince Scully call games. Like, he had his own style. Obviously, it goes without saying, given the fact that he was a one-man show. But he had so much information and just an ease of telling stories to the audience in games where a team could be down 12-0. He didn't care. He had his bits on every single player that could come into the game, something interesting about them to say. Talking about Madison Bumgarner or anybody else, killing snakes or whatever.
Yeah, one of my favorite things today was like a lot of people have been sharing on Twitter, different clips from Vin Scully's career, and like I saw the Madison Bumgarner one where they're talking about killing the snake and finding the jackrabbit, and it's not just the story. It's like, for me, as somebody who does broadcasting on the high school level, like, I noticed the ability he had to like weave the story with what was happening on the field and didn't miss a beat. There was never a, trying to remember like, oh, where was I in the story? Like, it was all seamless.
It's perfect for baseball too, because baseball is a sport of a lot of standing around and then little bits of action here and there. So the ability to weave a story in between pitches, in between plays, is such a unique quality for an announcer to make any game interesting, because we know baseball can be a little bit slow, a little boring at times.
Yeah, that's why you usually have 2 people, so that one of them is talking about analytics, or they're doing the color commentary, in between the pitches, because there's a lot of time in between pitches.
Or sometimes the guys just need somebody to talk to and crack jokes with or something like that to keep the vibes going. Vince Scully didn't need that. He was just, I'm doing my thing. It's time for Dodgers baseball. Vince Scully off and running for 9 innings, and it was fantastic.
Vince Scully called Dodgers games when they played in Brooklyn, and they moved to Los Angeles in 1958. Right? Like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's how long he's been there. So my experience with Vince Scully, I didn't have the extra innings package and stuff, and I bought MLB.TV when I lived in Atlanta almost solely to watch the Orioles. But in 2016, the Orioles were playing in LA, and one of those games was on MLB Network. So I tuned in, and they had the Dodgers feed, and it was Vince Scully calling the game. And I was just absolutely delighted by my experience watching that game, because Vince Scully was just spectacular. He was talking about, not only was he talking about the Dodgers because it's a Dodgers broadcast, he was talking about the Orioles players too in the same way. all the little details and bits and stuff, and it was amazing. So I mean, the Orioles did win that game, which helped. But the to listen to Vin Scully call an Orioles game, I will never forget it. It was that good. I shared a picture in our chat of Kevin Gosman from his Twitter. He went up to the press box, among other players, but the one that came to mind was Kevin Gosman, and the one that was easiest to find, I guess, just to take a picture with Vin Scully, because in 2016, that was his last season before he retired. And, players don't usually go up to the press box. Usually the press people go down to the clubhouse. So that's just that's my story of how special Vin Scully is.
Yep. So long time announcer, absolute legend across multiple sports, and one of the class acts of sports broadcasting that you'll ever see. People would be lucky to have a career half as great as Vin Scully's was. And we obviously wish his family the best, and we will miss him dearly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's move to the NBA, where another legend has passed away. Bill Russell died on Sunday as Evan and I were returning from Ohio. I got the prompt on my phone letting me know that it happened. And, we could spend an entire episode just on Bill Russell, to be honest. Like, he is that big of a deal. And I think that people sometimes sleep on how great he was as a player, and people also don't understand how great he was as a man and what he dealt with as a player. I mean, playing in the 50s and the 60s in Boston, and we can talk all day about the racial animus that existed, still does in a lot of ways, but especially back then for a professional athlete to play in that town and be the face of that team. And to do so much winning, and despite that, have people threatening his life, vandalizing his house, lobbing slurs at him the entire time. And he handled it with more dignity than I could imagine anybody having to do so. He wasn't a guy who just, took it like on the wrist or something like that. He wasn't just a turn the other cheek guy. He got angry about it, but he didn't let it define him. He didn't let it become his identity as the guy that was constantly being beaten down. He rose above it in a way that was vocal enough for everybody to understand, yes, I'm better than you, but that doesn't make what you're doing passable. This is unacceptable, and I'm going to fight you every step of the way. He was just an absolute icon. Like, among the NBA giants that we've seen, he stands alone. Like, we could talk about the greatness of Michael Jordan and the greatness of LeBron James and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Bill Russell's one of one. He is the absolute giant of the NBA as far as I'm concerned. He casts a bigger shadow than anybody in existence. And, he's 88 years old, so, people at that age pass away. But he felt like a guy that was just going to live forever just because he was so iconic. Even attending finals games when the trophy that was named after him is handed out for finals MVP. And it just felt like his presence mattered more than just about anything imaginable in basketball. So it's going to be tough to see him not be there going forward.
Yeah, his presence as an NBA icon, as a social justice icon. So when I was younger, I watched a lot of NBA history stuff. Like, I was really big on looking back at past players and some of the all-time greats, and I'd watch stuff about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and I'd watch stuff about Magic Johnson, and I'd watch stuff about Isaiah Thomas, and of course Michael Jordan and Karl Malone, and that. But Bill Russell was always my favorite to watch anything about, whether it was actual footage of him playing or, documentaries about him, or even just like reading about him. I read anything I could get my hands on about Bill Russell, because his, as a young white kid, like, I can't understand the crap that he went through. And it's something I couldn't get my head wrapped around. It's something that, quite honestly, I still can't get my head wrapped around how, any black player in any league during that era could keep their composure in those situations. And it was something that I can't explain why I found it so inspirational. And inspirational doesn't even really do it justice. But I did. And I latched onto those stories. And, we talk about, we're all getting to that age where a lot of the players that, we didn't necessarily grow up watching them play. We're not that old yet, but players that we heard about who had kind of built up these leagues into what they are today are passing away, and there's a lot of them that hit kind of hard. But I don't know, Bill Russell just kind of hits me a little bit different. The magnitude is much higher. So, he lived a good life. 88 is, he was no spring chicken. But it's still really sad.
Yeah, it is really sad. I mean, we certainly lost a legend here. You guys know way more about basketball and basketball history than me. But it can't be overstated how good and great of a person that Bill Russell is. The leadership and the high level of character that he had was just remarkable. Gore, you mentioned how dealing with all the racism. I mean, I remember one time the Orioles were playing up in Boston, and Adam Jones was subject to a racial slur one time, and that was bad enough, right? But back in the 50s and 60s in Boston, I cannot even imagine having to go through something like that.
It wouldn't have even been newsworthy.
Yeah, because that was just every day. Yeah, exactly. So, to have to put up with that so unfairly as well. I appreciate what he meant to not only the NBA but the whole world, right? It's sort of an example to live by. And that I mean that's probably more important than how many championships did he win? 11 or something?
Rings.
Yeah, imagine doing something better in your life than winning 11 championships, right? That's sort of the level that he was at.
Yeah, he won 11 championships. He played 13 years in the NBA. So
he coached. He's a good coach.
Yeah, he's first African American coach as well. I think it is important, though, to talk about, obviously the civil rights issues that he dealt with and was a big-time pioneer and pushing back against. But I think it sometimes gets forgotten how damn good of a basketball player he was, too. People say stuff like, well, of course he won all those championships. He had 10 Hall of Famers on those teams. He didn't have 10 Hall of Famers on those teams. He made 10 guys into Hall of Famers because they played with him. Let's not get it twisted. Those teams won those titles because they had Bill Russell And that's pretty much the only reason why they won those
Yeah,
titles.
he's the connecting tissue between all of those titles.
Yes, and Thinking Basketball did a write-up on his career and showed just how significant Bill Russell was on the rare occasions where he wasn't out there to play. Their defense collapsed. Like, they were the best defense of all time by a country mile, so much better than the entire league at preventing points. And when Russell went to the bench or when Russell was injured, it fell off a cliff, and suddenly they looked like an average basketball team. And we know that the Celtics sure as hell weren't an average basketball team.
Well, that's what happens when he's not blocking balls into the stands.
Yeah, or when he's not jumping over his own teammate to block somebody else's shot. But I think it's also important to keep in mind that his biggest rival, who we went head-to-head with regularly, was Wilt Chamberlain. And Wilt Chamberlain was the most dominant scorer in the league. We all know about him averaging 50 points a game.
We all know about
him scoring 100 points. And like Bill Russell, for lack of a better word, kind of owned Wilt Chamberlain in those playoff matches. Like, Chamberlain scored points, but his performance was a significant drop from what it had been during the regular season. And for a guy who took all the shots, for a guy who had the offense entirely be about him, if somebody's stopping you and limiting your efficiency and your effectiveness on that side of the ball, it's a wrap. The only issue is nobody could really do that to Wilt Chamberlain except for Bill Russell. And I think it's important to note that, people think of both of them as centers, which is true. They were both centers, but Wilt Chamberlain was 7'1" and sometimes got up to as heavy as 300 pounds. He was a gigantic man compared to Bill Russell, who was 6'9.5", 220. And yet Bill Russell still pushed him around. Bill Russell still took him to school. Like, there was a want-to there that Bill Russell had beyond just his insane athletic ability. I mean, he was an Olympic sprinter at 6'10". This dude was able to be that guy. He was just an absolute freak show of an athlete and had the heart of a champion through and through. And I think that people need to remember that. I wish we had more footage of him playing because, in the 60s,
there isn't.
It's very
lot.
limited.
Yeah.
But, he was just an unbelievable player. But everybody who watched him play understood the impact that he had when he was on the floor and understood why he was truly one of the greatest basketball players of all time. So I hope that people remember that, and I hope that that story continues to be told because it's important too. Like the life of a man who fought so hard for civil rights is obviously the most important part of his story, but his basketball ability is why he's so prevalent in our culture, and that shouldn't be understated either.
Yeah, it was either this year or last year that NBA 2K had, I think it was like an episode of 2K TV where they were talking to Jaylen Brown, and he spent like 15 minutes, it felt like, just talking about Bill Russell and his influence on the Celtics, his influence on Jaylen Brown personally. I think one of the saddest things about Bill Russell dying really is that, like, he's not going to be able to have that personal impact on players or people going forward. People are not going to be able to experience what Jaylen Brown experienced, being able to get to know Bill Russell.
Yeah, it's definitely a big loss for the NBA community and really the world. So obviously, rest in peace to Bill Russell, and thoughts and prayers with his family as well at these times. I can't imagine anybody casting a bigger shadow than he did across sports, and he will be dearly missed. So before we get out of here, we haven't been on for quite a while, and the reason is one of these guys in this show decided that he was going to be a big-time grown-up and get married. So that would be Corey on July 10th. I remember the day because it was only a few weeks ago, so I should remember the date. Corey got married to his, at the time, fiance, now wife, Rashonda, and Evan and I were in attendance as groomsmen. And yeah, it was quite an eventful weekend. Got down there Friday night, got to the Durham Bulls game. That was a great time. So obviously I'm going to let you have the floor first, Corey, since you were the groom. I'm going to let you take this one before we maybe make fun of you a little bit.
Maybe.
How was your weekend? Did you have a good time? Because I felt like we didn't see you all that much because you were busy. You had a gajillion family members and Rashonda's family around, and we were kind of just like, okay, we're gonna let Corey do that, and we're gonna hang over here. You were obviously really busy, and a lot of things went right, and some things got a little weird with the car and things like that. So how was your overall impression of the whole weekend?
Well, I mean, most of it kind of was a blur, especially like the actual day of the wedding. And I'm not just talking about the morning. There's plenty of good reason why the morning was a blur because it was. I drank too much on Saturday night. Was up late puking. Pretty sure I was messaging you guys. I know I sent Rashonda a drunk text while that night. Nothing bad.
Oh, jeez.
It was nothing bad, but yeah, like I was.
Oh my God.
Usually I can't like drink liquid fast enough to actually get drunk. I can get buzzed, but I don't get drunk. I haven't actually been drunk more than like I could count on one hand how many times I've been drunk since college. Like that's how rare it is for me at this point in my life. I was hammered that Saturday night. And I woke up Sunday morning because Rashonda and her bridesmaids were going to use our hotel room for their getting ready. I was going to go down to Eric's. And I woke up and I was like, oh, wow, I actually feel okay. Like I'm very surprised. I feel pretty good right now. Get downstairs to Eric's. He lets me in. I lay down in the bed. And over the course of the next 30 minutes, it just starts to hit me. And I don't know why, but I was just out. I was like, I wasn't out. Like I wasn't asleep. I was very much awake, very much aware of what was going on. I knew every time Evan came in and left the room, like I vaguely remember hearing Eric saying something about the color of Evan's vest and thinking, oh boy. But I just I couldn't bring myself to open my eyes or move or get out of the fetal position that I apparently was in.
You were in quite a few positions. None of them looked very comfortable.
You know, Sean came down and gave me some water with electrolytes, and that did not sit well at all for me. Made me feel like I was going to puke even more. But Evan came up clutch with his, what was it, Advil? Yeah.
Yes, you got it right,
Advil.
finally.
Yeah. I don't know why I have so much trouble with Advil versus Aleve, but yes, Evan came in clutch with the Advil. I took one of those and felt like I went to take a shower, and by the time I got out of the shower, I was like, okay, I can do this. I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to stay okay. Took one more Advil before we actually left for the ceremony. I barely drank at the reception, by the way. I think I had 3 sips of alcohol the whole evening, and it was for the 3 toasts. That was it. I didn't drink any other alcohol because just the thought of it made me sick to my stomach. So that was a disappointment because we got the open bar and I did not get to partake.
Well, Evan made up for that.
That's what I heard. I heard.
Yeah. So Corey,
But yeah, no, I mean it was a great weekend. Really enjoyed. We still got to do some things together over the course of the weekend, from the Bulls game to the rehearsal brunch on Saturday morning, and then of course the actual rehearsal Saturday evening. And we were over at Boricua Soul for the welcome gathering for other people to come and see us. So there were a fair number of events that we got to do together. But it was a very busy weekend, and it was a blur. That pizza on Saturday night, though, that slapped. That was
excellent.
Damn good pizza.
Yes, I
never expected a salad on a pizza to be so good, but it was.
I mean, I went there and I saw these really fancy,
You
complicated
were
looking
pepperoni.
pizzas. And I was just like, "Hey, can you just make a pepperoni pizza?" And she was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, good," because that's what I want. And it was really good pizza. Like, I'm not a pizza connoisseur. I'm generally a believer of
Wagon
any
wheel pizza kind of guy.
any pizza's good pizza generally. So except for the stuff at that Reds game, that looks awful. I'm glad I didn't get
Oh
pizza
my
from there.
god,
But
that looked like vomit with pepperoni on it.
yeah, the
So you
pizza was
saying you
great.
would like Little Caesars pizza?
Like, shout out to Evan for understanding my hangover reference as we were walking out of the hotel, and I started singing the Kanye West tune, and seemingly either Corey and Sean didn't hear or didn't understand what I was going for, but it's in the scene The Hangover where they're driving to Vegas and Can't Tell Me Nothing comes on by Kanye West, and it's like it just fits the vibe perfectly for four bros going out to do stuff before a wedding. So that was appreciated that somebody understood what I was putting down there. But yeah, Corey, you messaged me and I guess you messaged everybody in the groom squad, but it was like 2:48 or something. I could be a little off with my timestamp, but
I will check the receipt right now.
Yes, it's still there. I remember I see this message pop up. It says I'm puking up a storm, and I had a feeling something like that might happen because you were pretty lit when we left, and things were spinning according to you, and you were just blurting out random stuff. So I was a little bit like, okay, hopefully he's okay tomorrow. And then I see I'm puking up a storm, and then Evan sends you a message saying, "Do you need us to come back up there?" And I was like, "I'm not going back up there. Are you kidding me? Like, there's nothing I can do for you. You're throwing up. What am I gonna do? Stand there? I can't hold your hair. You don't have enough of it." So I wasn't gonna do that, but I was like, he'll get it out of his system. Hopefully, he drinks some water. He'll hopefully he feels okay tomorrow. And then you're sitting in my room, just looking like a college freshman, just looking miserable. I'm never drinking again. Type of stuff. Just to go, And so my initial plan was to let you shower first because you needed to get ready to go more than we did because you're the groom. But I was like, he needs a little more time. I'll take the shower first and he can get in after me. But yeah, I was impressed that you got it together because I was like, this dude's screwed. He's not going to make it. We got people coming at 1 o'clock. It's 12:15. He's still face down in the mattress. This is a disaster. But yeah, fortunately, it seemed like it. No, yes. I guess Evan's Advil was the secret sauce you needed to get your stuff together there. But after that, I thought everything went pretty well. Had some wardrobe issues with Evan's weird vest and
your buttons.
Well, that was my fault because I left the studs at home, and somehow Evan had two sets.
Oh, right, that's what happened.
And he just, although I still can't find them, so I don't even know if I actually ever got them. Like they're not. I haven't found them anywhere.
Huh.
So and they haven't fined me for them though. So maybe they just don't care about the studs. But yeah, I had a great time at the wedding. The reception or the ceremony was great. I didn't realize that the officiant was going to be reading as much from the Bible and stuff. So I was like, wow, this is I'm standing on this marble surface when these, shoes with not a whole lot of give. I was like, puppies are barking a little bit, man. I was like, let's get this going.
I was in pain after 5 minutes, and there was like 40 more minutes.
The ceremony itself, like once we actually walked out to there, like I watched it, and to me it felt a lot quicker when I was actually in it than it is watching it again. But from when we walked out to the end of the ceremony was only about 23 minutes.
Oh. Okay.
Well, I just remember the entire time I kept patting my pocket to make sure the ring was there because I was like, if I mess this up, I'm screwed. Like, we're not gonna be having this podcast anymore. I'm gonna be excommunicated from the squad if I lose this ring. So I'm just the whole time, I kept patting that pocket, and I thought about just holding it in my hand the whole time, but I was like, my hands are kind of sweaty. I was like, I don't want to hand this person a sweaty ring to put on Rashonda's finger. That ain't it. I'll just leave it in the pocket. But yeah, did not lose the ring, so that was nice. And I think that I held my end of the bargain of holding a ring for 20 minutes without losing it. I think I did my job okay.
You did.
I just had to stand there, and that was hard enough. Corey, I don't understand the puking at 2 a.m. when you're 30 years old and about to get married. I'm sorry, but like, really, right? Like we said, that's college freshman behavior. That's somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, right? You gotta mix in a water on game day, right?
Yeah, Kevin Garnett, Crown Royal water break.
Yeah, and I kept telling you to drink water, and you just groaned back at me. And I'm like, this guy's just not listening, right? So I just told Sean to tell you to drink water, and you did. So I don't know why you don't listen to me. Yeah.
Was this Saturday
you were
night?
in your stupor. Yeah. And Sunday morning. Yeah, you just gone. I'm like, Corey, drink water. Nothing.
Yeah,
Sean,
it wasn't.
and you some water. Down the hatch. Like, unbelievable. So, that's fine.
But yeah, beyond that, I the reception was great. I really liked the venue, the Rick House. I thought that was really cool.
That was cool.
I liked the setup for the tables, with the not just the fact that they were numbered based off of some prominent athlete that fit the setting for DeMatha people or for Maryland folks or for Duke fans or Patriot fans or Yankee fans or whatever. I also just like the fact that it was all written on that chalkboard, really fancy. I was like, who the hell did that? That's incredible. Like, it looked like somebody painted it on a chalkboard with chalk. I didn't understand how it was that good, but it was pretty cool to see that too.
Yeah, we got a really good chalkboard artist. Her name is Marika, and she does a lot of work at the Rick House apparently. But it was fantastic. Like Rashawn and I we had seen some of her work before, and we liked it, and that's why we hired her for it. But it blew us away when we finally got a chance to look and be like, oh, okay, the chalkboard. Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty great, and
it was amazing.
I did my job.
Took a picture of that.
I danced with some grannies. That's why I'm here to dance.
You danced with my grandmother.
Yes, yes.
The video that was quite funny.
Yeah, I was like, whatever. She'll follow this, so yeah, it worked. Yeah.
Yeah. My grandmother was a trip during the ceremony.
Yeah, she seemed like she was having fun.
Yeah. I think she was drinking and on painkillers. So.
Oh well. There were a couple of times where I felt like, okay, it feels like this is a spinning top situation and it's starting to tilt, so I might have to, keep somebody upright here. But other than that, it was fine. Been there, done that. So that was no big deal at all. But I went to cookout afterwards. Evan was too tired. He didn't go with me.
Oh my God, I was exhausted.
Evan had also been just imbibing heavily at the reception the entire time.
Every time I looked up, he was at the table just drinking.
Yeah, I wore out the floor between my seat and the open bar. So, somebody with, I guess, social anxiety or something, wedding receptions are just nightmare fuel. So, the open bar was much appreciated. And then by the time it was time to leave, I just collapsed on the bed and just in a heap. I threw the tuxedo in a pile in the corner, and that was it. And then Eric's calling me about going to cookout. I'm like, no.
I was hungry, man. I was like, because the thing is, the food was great, but I wasn't trying to
eat.
I didn't eat much because I'm sitting there. I gotta do this toast. I'm a little nervous. I'm like, I don't want to mess this up, So I'm like, hey, what am I gonna say? How should I say this? And I'm like. So the food kind of became an afterthought for me, and then by the end of it, I was like, I should eat more food. That was really good. And now I'm hungry. I want to go to cookout. So
the food was excellent.
So that's what I ended up doing. But yeah, I hope everything was well received as far as I thought everybody else did a great job with their toasts. I thought mine was okay. I guess
I thought yours was excellent.
I held it down.
I kind of wish that we had recordings of them, but I don't think we do.
I mean, I was just like, I had a plan. It wasn't like that was straight off the cuff, but, I was like, I didn't want to have notes up there because we were fumbling around with them and stuff. So I was just like, I'll rehearse this several times and just give it a rip. So that's what came out. So
your toast was fantastic.
I took it to heart that it was a toast, not a roast. So I didn't make fun of anybody too much. I only really had 2 things but one of them was kind of making fun of us together
Yeah.
instead of just you. So I figured that would be fine, But so that worked out okay.
Yeah, no, it was very good. But
So
yeah,
anything
it
else
was,
to say about your awesome wedding?
No, I mean we went on a part of the reason that we had to take so much time off though was because Rashawn and I went on a honeymoon. That took it wasn't quite 2 weeks, but it was about a week and a half. Left the Tuesday after the wedding, and we went up, stayed a night in Connecticut, and then stayed 4 nights in Maine. And then we stayed a night in New Hampshire, and then 4 nights in Vermont, a night in Connecticut, and then back home. It was fun. We went up the coast of Maine along Route 1, which people have said that it's kind of like it's almost like the PCH. It's not quite that, but it is very scenic and quite pretty to drive along. We stayed just outside of Portland for a couple nights. Then we went up to Belfast for a couple nights. There was a really nice inn there that we stayed at, and we got to go up to Acadia National Park and Bar Harbor. I got myself a T-shirt up there. And then we stayed literally just north of Mount Washington in New Hampshire. So the next morning before we left for Vermont, we went down and we took a bus tour to the top of Mount Washington. And I got a sweatshirt there, and it was very cold. It was interesting because like at the base it was like 80 something degrees, and at the peak it was like in the probably maybe low 50s and very windy. I've never been on a mountain that high, and just like Mount Washington isn't even a top 300 mountain in the United States in terms of its altitude, and it's 4,000. No, it's like 6,000 something feet, because Killington is 4,000. It's like another 2,000 for Mount Washington, and it doesn't even crack the top 300, but it was quite spectacular to feel the difference in temperature and to see the view up there. But yeah, and then we spent a few nights in Killington. We went to the Ben & Jerry's Flavor Graveyard, which was cool. The Rock of Ages Granite Quarry, which we found out while we were there. They supplied the granite for the Atlantic and Pacific stands at the World War II Memorial, which is where I proposed to Rashonda, so that was pretty neat. And we went to Killington Resort, and I got to do... we rode a mountain coaster.
You got a credit.
Yeah, I got a credit. We went on a mountain coaster. I got to do like an American Ninja Warrior type obstacle course, which was fun. The final thing where like you have to like run up the wall, they had that. It wasn't as high as the one on American Ninja Warrior. I made it pretty easily on this. I'm not sure if I would make it on the actual one, but it was fun. And afterwards I realized, okay, this is why I got an Enso ring for things like this, because I wore my actual wedding ring while I was doing that, and my finger was like so like it just swelled up so much that I couldn't get my ring off for like the rest of the day.
Oh, did you see what happened to Jimmy Fallon on his ring finger on his left hand a few years ago? Like,
no.
Remember for like 6 months he just had this giant bandage on his left hand. He had some strange
I don't watch enough
finger...
of him to notice that, but
this was years ago. But he had some strange, like, rare finger injury having to do with his wedding ring. Required surgery and stuff. So just be careful, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I have an Enso ring, so like I wear that most of the time. Like if I'm doing something active, like you certainly want something like that if you're gonna wear a ring while you're doing like any sort of like stuff with power tools, because this thing is not gonna break. If you start to like saw through your hand, an Enso ring at least will, so you can still pull your hand back. Also, an Enso ring it's rubber, so like you can if your hand does swell up, you can just kind of stretch it and get it off. But yeah.
Yeah, I was.
Did you get any mittens in Vermont?
I did not. I did not get mittens.
Mittens.
I did not get mittens.
Yeah, so I finally actually got to talk to Tommy at the reception for the brief time that he was there, and he didn't make me nervous like he usually does, because Tommy usually scares the hell out of me just because he looks so serious all the time. But he was being nice and stuff. And then, of course, he ends up making me nervous later in another way, because he brought a DeMatha football shirt with him for Rashonda's godfather.
Yeah.
And he was asking me which one was Rashonda's godfather, and I pointed him out. I said, that's him right there. Taller guy with the graying hair, bright blue eyes, can't really miss him.
Yep.
And so then Pooch just kept saying, okay, so you're sure that's him, right? And he repeated it like 2 or 3 times, and I was like, well, now you're making me unsure. But I was like, I've been here all weekend. I've seen a lot of him, and they referred to him as Rashonda's godfather a lot. So I'm pretty sure that's him.
It got to the right person.
Yeah, and he seemed really excited about it.
He was very excited.
Yeah, like so when Tommy went out there to give it to him, I walked out there kind of like almost behind him, just in case somehow I was wrong about this. So that way I would share some embarrassment with Tommy. I wouldn't make him stand there like an idiot, like, oh crap, I met the wrong guy. I would be like, oh, it's my fault. But I was pretty sure it was him. So yeah, it got to the right person. I was glad that happened. I was also glad that those shoes were, had enough slip in them so I can, break out like my 2 party tricks that I do at the on the dance floor. I wasn't gonna give you the full blown, routine, but
I was
like,
disappointed though when we actually got like the whole circle of people and you didn't do the gritty through them. It's like this is where you should break that out. Instead, you just did it right in front of me, Rashonda.
I should have done the gritty then, but I was like, I got another idea, and I didn't want to be out there too long. I just like, I'll do a couple things and get the hell out of here. And then I did, and I thought they went okay, but I was like, whatever, that's enough. I'm good. I'm gonna go get a beer. Because
you were living on the dance floor. We have a lot of pictures of you on the dance floor.
That's what I do, man. Like if you ask me to run a half a mile, I'm gonna be winded. If you ask me to dance for 30 straight minutes, I'll be fine. I'll be sweaty, but I'll be fine. So yeah, I'll be good to go there. But yeah, that was quite a lot of dancing, and it had the conga line going on. That was fun. Gotta have that. That was excellent. So yeah, it was great times. Happy times all around.
Yeah.
What was the lightsaber thing? Because I had no idea what was going on.
That was the exit.
For multiple reasons.
So that was the filing out, yeah.
Yeah, so like I saw a picture of it on Instagram, and I see myself just kind of participating, sort of. I'm like, ooh.
You held it up.
What was that supposed to be?
It was supposed to be like you hold it up and like we walk under. Like usually when you do a grand exit, especially like at night, it's something with lights. It's not always lightsabers, but I'm a Star Wars fan, so I was going to have lightsabers. A lot of times you'll do either sparklers, which I don't think we were allowed to have at the Brick House, or like, I also, because the lightsabers were kind of expensive, I only got 12 of those, and I got a bunch of the like little LED things to supplement them. And so like, it was just like you hold that up, we walk under, it makes for some really good pictures.
Okay.
Those pictures were good, and then they played Flashing Lights by Kanye afterwards, and I was like, that's pretty fitting given what we just did. So that was a nice little touch. I must say, down there 3 days, I never got drunk. I didn't drink too much at the Durham Bulls game. Didn't drink Saturday that much. I had a couple shots of Beam. Apparently, Corey had more. I didn't realize you were drinking that much.
Apparently, I was sipping it like it was water.
Yeah, and a lot of water. On that Tom Brady regimen, apparently.
I was hydrating.
Oh yes, hydrated with Diet Coke.
Evan's over here like, drink some water. I'm like, I am.
Yeah. Jeez. But yeah, no overconsumption of alcohol for me, because I was a busy boy. I can't be on the dance floor drunk. It's a disaster. Like, even if I had like 2 drinks, like I tried it at like some dance events that I went to, and I'd feel fine. Like, I wouldn't be stumbling or anything like that, but I would take a step and the person I'm dancing with wouldn't follow it. Like, she just wouldn't move. And I'd be like, I can't lead while I'm drunk. This is going to be a disaster. I got to keep it clean. So that worked out okay. And then Evan and I went to King's Dominion the next day. So
that was great.
It was great.
Yeah.
So that's all we've got for, I think that covers it for Corey's wedding. It was quite an event. Glad to be there. Glad I was able to participate. And thank you,
I was
Corey,
glad-
for getting married.
I was
Appreciate
glad
it.
to have both of you guys there.
Yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah, glad to be there.
So in the midst of this month-long hiatus, Evan and I have continued to gallivant across America, riding roller coasters and other things, and that continued. Like I mentioned, after Corey's wedding, the day after that Monday, we stopped by Kings Dominion, which is literally right on the way on 95. So it was pretty appropriate that we rolled in there, and we get in for free because we are season pass holders at Cedar Fair Parks. So we just walked on in there, rode some stuff for about 8 hours, and then went home. Then the Friday that week, we went to Hershey Park with Sean, and we're happy Sean's still with us because
Yes,
we
we
thought he
almost
might
killed
die.
Sean.
He was,
We got him a free ticket to Hershey Park as well. He paid $0 to get in there.
Why did you think he might die?
Because we were wearing him out.
Yeah.
Like we were marathoning Sky Rush, which ain't for the faint of heart by any means, and
It's one of the most intense roller coasters in the whole world, and we started with that.
yep.
Because it's one of my favorites. So I was like, that's where we're going. And like, I think that was a bit much for Sean first thing in the morning, and like it wasn't even warmed up yet. It was
No,
sluggish
it
and
wasn't.
stuff.
Yeah.
And then we walked around and rode more stuff, and we came back to Sky Rush in the afternoon, and I was blown away. It was going so fast. It was so warmed up. How is that even legal to put human beings on that thing, right? Like, what is that? It was insane. The violence with which it throws your body around.
Is Sky Rush the one that goes like literally straight down on the drop? Which one is that?
It's a pretty steep drop, but I don't
There's
know.
one that like goes like it has like almost like a perfectly straight down drop, and it almost
It
almost comes in on the drop.
Just sounds
Think
like
of
Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah, it's
Fahrenheit.
got a vertical lift and I think a 97-degree drop.
It's been
or
a
something
while
like
since
that.
I've been to there, so like I don't remember which one is which.
Well-
I knew that I'd ridden both.
You could have came for free on the 15th.
He was a
You
little
know,
busy.
you're on your honeymoon or something. So
I was
you know.
not in the state. I was not in the state of Maryland or the state of Pennsylvania.
Neither.
Yeah.
You were not even in a
Several
bordering
hours.
state.
I was several hours north of there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. Love Hershey Park and Sky Rush is amazing.
Yeah, there was a like if I was ever going to buy a picture that they had of when they do the camera flash on the ride, I would have bought the one where Sky Rush lurched me to the left and I was literally doing this in my seat. Like my back was a little sore the next day because I definitely tweaked a muscle, but the day of I didn't even notice. I was just like, ooh, this is fun. But I was like I was trying so hard because I put my hands up. The thing goes straight down, and it's obviously very intense. But then it has some pretty tight banks, and I just went, whoa! And I was like, oh no! I was stuck like that for about 3 seconds, waiting for the forces to ease up a little bit for a moment for me to get back to center. And I was just like, woof! And by the end of that ride, Evan was like kicking his feet, because he just had an out of body experience apparently, and just. I was like, I'm having fun too, man. Like this is great. And I look over at Sean. Sean's like, he's like taking a deep breath, just absolutely smoked. I also don't think we did Sean any favors when we agreed to ride Wildcat again, because that was ill-advised.
That was Sean's idea.
But we should
That's
have
his
told him
fault.
it was a bad idea. We were the vets. He was a rook. He didn't know what to expect. And he got his ass whooped by that one. So did we, but we were a little more prepared for things like that. So yeah, that was a rough go of it. But I did get a milkshake this time, and it was very good. It was high quality milkshake from Hershey Park. I didn't get the elaborate milkshake. Evan admonished me for not getting the one with the big ass cookies and the, I'm like, that's too much, man. I can't do all that. I'm at an amusement park. I'm about to hop on Sky Rush another 3 times before we get out of here. I can't do all that right now. Like that's just.
You don't want to look like me on my wedding night.
I prefer never to look like that ever. Or more, I don't care about looking like that the night before, But the next morning, I don't want to look like that. That you look like you were in hell. You were going through it. I was like, ugh. I'm too old for that. You know, when I was 20, I could bounce back. 31, not as good for me. But yeah, Hirschberg was a great time, and you know my computer is dying, so we might have to wrap this up soon. But
Why isn't it plugged in?
Because I unplugged it because it was fully charged, and you know now it's. I didn't realize that this would take this much battery life. So, yeah.
We do these marathon podcasts. This is episode 203.
And it's virtually always plugged in, but the thing's in Greg's room and he's snoozing. So anyway, Evan and I went to Kings
Sounds
Island.
like you're snoozing.
I was. I also was snoozing earlier. I took a 2.5-hour nap by accident. So Evan and I went to Kings Island last weekend when we also went out there to see the Orioles play the Reds. And just like the first time we went, it was fantastic. We got on 44 rides on Saturday. We were disappointed. We were hoping to get to 60, but it didn't work out that way. We had a little bit of bad luck. Mystic Timbers went down for a little bit while we were in line, so we had to wait like an extra 15 minutes to get on that thing. But it was great as usual. Awesome times all around. Ran into some interesting characters again. Some people who decided that they were going to say that the roller coaster featured on my shirt wasn't as good as a roller coaster at Kings Dominion, which is just nonsense. But you know, it was funny because he said, well, I-305 is better than Fury. And Evan and I were both just like, ooh, no, that's not
This is a
true
complete stranger, by the way.
Yeah, like
we don't
were
know
just
this
like,
guy's name or anything.
Like both of us kind of like almost like he's a leper or something. Like, oh, you just said what now? Like, but that went into the ignore pile for me for the rest of the day. I'm like, I'm not interested in hearing anything else you have to say about roller coasters because that take sucks. But yeah, not as many. No spitting venom parents at small children this time. Evan still doesn't necessarily believe that I saw what I saw on 4th of July weekend. He thinks that I might have made it up. I promise you I did not.
So I was in the bathroom when
Yes.
that happened.
I was there. It was quite ugly. But yeah, it was a great time. Can't wait to go back. Shout out, by the way, to the Washington, Pennsylvania McDonald's. That place was on point. At whatever time it was like, well, I guess we got there around midnight.
10:30.
Or 11 or something like that. Yeah. And the dining room was closed. The drive-thru was open. They had a double cheeseburger bundle for $7 where I got 2 double cheeseburgers and a basket of French fries. Not a large fry, a basket of French fries, which was significantly bigger than a large. And everything was cooked fresh. The hamburgers were actually pretty looking. Like the buns looked great. They were appropriately stacked. It was just fantastic. Like I haven't had McDonald's that good in ages, and both times it was great. And so we will be stopping there again next time we're heading out that way because that seems
every time.
Yeah, like that seems to be the place to stop along that route. So full credit to them. Evan, you got anything?
Halfway.
You got anything to add about our adventures?
I mean, not really. You know, shout out to all the workers at Kings Island. You know, they're the real MVPs here, dealing with us over and over and over and over and over. Because like most people, when they go to the music park, they ride every ride like once and then move on, right? But like, you know, we would, like Diamondback, for example, we got there first thing in the morning. We rode that 8 times in a row just to start the day because it's great. And, you know, we had skip the line passes, which is just the best, right? Like the Orion line was like 2 hours long, just blazing heat and stuff. And we just walk right to the front. You know, we show our little wristband and, you know, it's like they roll out the red carpet because we foolishly spend a whole bunch of extra money. And right this way. And you just breeze by all these people who just look miserable. I took a picture to show you guys how long the line was, and I didn't even notice until Drew pointed it out that somebody was glaring at me while I was taking the picture. Like, oh no.
Yeah, mean mugging big time.
Yeah, that is too bad. You know.
We got a little phrase for that. With your broke ass. So maybe you should pony up.
Yeah, you should they sell fast lanes for everybody, not just us. So, you could have bought one. You decide not to. I mean, the price is a little intimidating, I must say, but worth it every time.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Pay more money, have more fun. Had a great time at the Orioles-Reds game. Hopefully the kid who fell down the stairs is okay. He looked like he was fine. Yeah, just a little. I think he was like 1% hurt and 99% embarrassed.
Yeah.
That's usually how it is.
And maybe a little bit shaken up because when you're falling down the steps, you don't really know how it's going to go. So like, there's a little bit of a fear factor there. When you get to the bottom, you're like, wow, that could have been a lot worse than it was. He looked like he just scraped up his elbow, and he took it like a champ. He was trying really hard not to cry, but I could tell he was going to cry. I was like, all right, at least he's not like blubbering over there. He's being a champ. So shout out to him, whoever that kid was.
Whoever you are. You'll never forget that, and we won't either. Yeah. Let's see. We walked across the Roebling Bridge from Cincinnati to Covington, Kentucky. So we got a new state credit as well. Eric and I have both visited Kentucky now, and I think that's plenty for our time in Kentucky. We were there for about 10 minutes, and that's enough.
Yeah, I don't think I
took a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
Well, Maine and Vermont were both new credits for both Rashonda and me. And Rashonda's trying to see all 50 states, and at this point, I'm kind of thinking I might try and do the same. So, always cool to get new state credits. I went through and I counted up my roller coasters today, the ones I can remember that I've ridden before. I've done 21. I know I've done more than 21. I know I've ridden more than 21 different roller coasters, but 21 that I can actually remember. And Eric, I think you're coming up on 100.
Yeah, should hit that sometime in the next couple of weeks. So we'll talk about that a little bit more next week because Evan and I have another trip planned. Next Wednesday, we're heading to Tampa Bay to go to Busch Gardens down there and also see the Orioles play the Rays. So we'll get into that a little bit later.
Nice.
Yeah. When we booked the trip to see the Orioles play in Tampa, the Orioles were garbage. And
now they're ahead of the Red Sox.
Yeah. Like that was a throw-in.
Times have changed. Yeah. I just want to get out of the sun, right? Or rain or both, because it's Florida. Hang out at the Trop. It's freezing cold in there. But
Trop.
Yeah.
Yes, we stand for the Trop.
Evan stands for the Trop.
Yeah. I can't wait to check it out, right? It's There's nothing wrong with it.
We're a pro-Trop podcast.
Yeah, we support the Trop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, it's looking forward to that as well. But yeah, just a lot of positives all around, I think.
Yes, indeedy. All right, so that's going to do it for our show this week. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is episode 203 and episode 1 of season 5 of the Sports Ballers. You guys know the drill at this point. Yeah, season 5, we're big time. You guys know the drill. You can email us at thesportsballers@gmail.com if you've got any comments, concerns, questions, fan mail, things you want to talk about on the show. Just feel free to hit us up there. You can also follow us on Twitter at SportsBallers18. You can follow us individually at Corey Puffett is Corey, at Quagmire67 is me, and at Evan_Ash13 is Evan. So do that. We tweet some interesting stuff and some boring stuff too. You can get this podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, wherever. If you've got a particular podcatcher that you prefer to be able to tune in that we are not on yet, feel free to let us know as well, and we'll do our best to get on that one too. Before we get out of here, you guys have any shout-outs before we hit the road?
Shout out to all of the places that we stayed on our honeymoon, as well as 21C down in Durham for hosting us on our stays for the wedding, for the honeymoon, and we really got very fortunate with having some amazing vendors, some great accommodations all around. So shout out to all of them for making the past month so enjoyable for Rashonda and me.
Did we lose Eric?
No, I'm still here. I'm just turning my camera off, maybe to save some battery life.
Oh, I thought you went and plugged the computer in.
I couldn't get to it.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I want to shout out, let's see, somebody, while we were at Bariqua Soul for the dinner, I think, on Saturday, somebody was excited to meet us, which
That was Greg.
was cool.
Yep, Greg. So
Yeah, shout out to you.
Yeah, one of Rashonda's classmates at Duke, Greg Termel. So yeah, shout out to him for sure.
Yeah, so hopefully you made it through this one. It's a short episode for us.
All right, and I've got a shout out to Brad Wilk, Tim Comerford, Tom Morello, and Zach De La Rocha. These are the members of Rage Against the Machine. I saw them last night at I believe it's now called Capital One Arena, and they were absolutely phenomenal.
Well, you said that if we weren't doing this podcast today, you might have considered going back to see them again. So I figured they must have been pretty good.
I almost considered blowing off the podcast anyway and saying, we're just not doing a show this week. I'm going to see Rage again because they were so good. It reminds me of when Evan and I went to Carowinds and I heard all this hype about Fury 325, like it's the best ride in the world, yada, 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 and all this stuff. And I had heard for years that Rage Against the Machine put on some of the best live shows you'll ever see. And I fully believed them. And then I actually got there and I was like, yeah, y'all ain't lying. This is for real. These guys are incredible. It was just an awesome show. Just a relentless set for an hour and a half, just played right through. And they were on point all night. Just absolutely fantastic. Highly recommend, even if you're not familiar with their oeuvre, the energy that they play with is just unbelievable. And I would definitely see them again. I hope they come around again because that was just an incredible night for me, for my dad, for my Aunt Cindy. It was just a terrific time. So shout out to them for putting on an awesome show. It's the first show I've been to, actually the second show I've been to since 2020 happened and everything got messed up. So, I was glad to have that one be sort of the first indoor performance I've seen, and it was worth every penny. So that was an awesome time. I hope everybody else is able to go do fun stuff for the rest of the summer because it's been pretty good for all of us here at the Sports Ballers. But we'll get back to you next week with some more stuff about training camp. Hopefully guys will stay healthy. Evan will be running the show at that point, and we will see you